calling the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're on agenda item 24A, which had a time specific for 5:30. So this is a discussion and possible action regarding some lease purchase agreement term sheets provided by Hop and May Adams and discussion on a new city hall. Mr. Martell, our project manager for this, why don't you take us through
Yes,
it?
Mayor, project manager. That's an official title I've not had for a while, but thank you. And good evening, board. As you know, on March 13th of this year, this board authorized the initiation of due diligence and the commencement of completion of any other preparatory tasks for entering into agreements for the planning, financing, construction, and operation of a new city hall. This evening, we are here as your team to follow up, seek any additional guidance, and provide transparency. Tonight, you will hear information supporting the approval of the term sheet in support of a construction of a new city hall and an accompanying parking garage at the northeast corner of North Plaza Street and East Proctor Street, directly east of what we affectionately call the Brick. While the tentative site plan is on the screen, I would like to take a moment to provide some updates on some information that I've heard the last couple of weeks, and just would like to make sure the board understands some of this information. First off, some rumor had it that Stewart Street was going to be converted to one-way as a part of this project. That is in fact not the case. There has been no discussion on turning Stewart Street into one-way either direction, and in fact, I'm sure if I tried to do that, Darren, your Public Works Director, would laugh me out of the room. Secondly, a contractor has not been selected for the proposed city hall or the parking garage. This selection would occur only after plans are developed and are bid in accordance with applicable laws. As you know, the foundation, in fact, has agreed to have your contracts administrator monitor that process from development of plans to bidding to bid opening to make sure that process is transparent. Another rumor that was out there was that the Carson City's Chinatown was in fact underneath a portion or all of this site. That is not the fact. In fact, Guy Roca, who we all know and love, he passed away a few years ago, prepared a paper in 2000 describing Chinatown's existence in Carson City, approximately 3 to 4 blocks south and 1 to 3 blocks east of the proposed site, essentially from the extension of Fall Street east to Valley and from 2nd on the north to 4th on the south, roughly speaking. Lastly, no right-of-way abandonment has occurred. Only the board can approve abandonments. Discussions about appropriate abandonments and the creation of community value in the proposed town square and city hall would be a part of the development agreement you are looking at this evening. As a sidebar, I do wholeheartedly agree that converting right-of-way that comes with a maintenance cost to the city into property tax-paying development with small community amenities is a win for Carson City, and given the right circumstances, I would wholeheartedly support that abandonment request. Stephanie, Robert, and Sherry will now provide a technical review of strategic alignment, property analyses, and financing capacity. Additionally, John Peterson from JN Consulting, as well as Ryan Henry from Taft Law as your bond and legal counsel, are here to answer any technical questions on the bonding and financing that you may have outside of our local expertise. And as always, you have your local DA team up there at the dais with you to answer any other legal questions. This recommendation for you this evening comes as a result of 10 years of deliberation amongst various iterations of this board, prioritizing different locations across the city, and considering various levels of customer service. And with that, I'll hand it over to the team for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, Stephanie Hicks, Deputy City Manager. Based on feedback that we've received, I'd like to start our presentation by taking you through the background and history that we discussed at the similar to the March 19th meeting. However, first I'd like to share some background about me. I hold a professional certification from the American Institute of Certified Planners, and I have 25 years of planning experience, including land use, strategic planning, and public infrastructure planning. I've worked both in the public sector as well as private land development consulting. When I came to the city in 2016, I served as the city's real property manager for 3.5 years. My duties during that time included implementation and management of the city's asset management program, conducting studies in property values and maintenance costs, and completion of a comprehensive facility condition assessment of the 149 city buildings and facilities. I've served as your deputy city manager for almost 7 years, and one of my first assignments in this position was the preparation of the city's strategic plan. During my time with the city, I've been involved in almost every aspect of the city's space needs and facility planning. The Board of Supervisors has been addressing citywide space needs and potential construction of a new city hall since 2015, when the Extraordinary Maintenance Fund was first created. As the city manager indicated, discussions have spanned over a decade, driven by courthouse expansion requirements, fragmented city services, and the need for a centralized customer service center. Between 2019 and 2021, the board prepared and approved the strategic plan, which included tactics to complete a citywide space needs assessment, evaluate the courthouse expansion, relocate the clerk recorder, and acquire or lease space for a centralized customer service center. In July of 2021, the board directed staff to proceed with disposing of 108 East Proctor Street and acquiring 600 East William Street to consolidate the city's most visited offices. Negotiations ceased in December of 2021 when the 800 East William Street property appraised below the owner's asking price. In 2021 and 2022, staff evaluated 3850 Arrowhead Drive, or the old Harley-Davidson building, and 3246 North Carson Street, which is in the Kmart Shopping Center, as well as other leasing options. At the February 25th, 2022 Board of Supervisors retreat, the board reviewed options to build a new city hall, expand the existing city hall, and sell buildings to generate capital, including looking at the Harley-Davidson and Kmart Shopping Center buildings. Current square footage utilization and estimated growth needs were provided, and at that time it totaled approximately 44,000 square feet. The board directed staff to explore expanding the courthouse and emphasized that City Hall should remain downtown. At the September 1st, 2022 board meeting, TSK Architects presented options for a new courtroom, clerk recorder relocation, office space reallocation, and the courthouse expansion. Alternatives included relocating services to the Kmart Shopping Center or constructing a new 44,000 square foot city hall. Staff continued exploring options in 2022 and 2023, including a new city hall and possible parking garage along Musser Street. At the 2025 board retreat, the board considered a proposal from the Hop and May Adams Foundation to construct a new city hall with a parking garage on their downtown property. The board directed staff at that time to explore the feasibility of the proposal and associated public-private partnerships. On June 5th of 2025, the board approved a contract with TSK Architects for the courthouse renovation project, requiring relocation of the clerk recorder and Department of Alternative Sentencing. An option to lease space at 600 East William Street did not come to fruition. In September of 2025, the board directed staff to adjust the project scope, allowing the clerk recorder to remain in the courthouse until a permanent relocation in a new city hall could occur. In March of this year, the board directed the city manager to proceed with negotiations with the Hop and May Adams Foundation for the design, construction, and purchase of a new city hall located downtown. Staff was directed to return with proposed financing terms for discussion, and we are bringing those terms forward to you today. The board has discussed space needs and city hall options at least 7 formal meetings since 2021, demonstrating a thorough and deliberate process. So why downtown? Going back to the February 2022 meeting when we had the discussion with this board about possible locations for a new city hall, the board made it very clear that downtown was the preferred location. The existing city hall is located downtown in close proximity to the state capitol, the legislature, and other state buildings, making coordination with those entities easier. City Hall should be placed at the heart of civic life as a city center. The new City Hall is envisioned as a cornerstone of downtown revitalization designed to enhance economic vitality, attract visitors, and improve lifestyle amenities for all Carson City residents. And downtown areas are usually the most accessible parts of a city, with public transportation, major roads, and pedestrian infrastructure. Being downtown allows the City Hall to be close to business, cultural institutions, and public gatherings. It will consolidate city administration, increase operational efficiency, and provide a modern, accessible space for public engagement and city services. But there's also a symbolic importance to placing a city hall in a prominent cultural location, which reinforces its visibility and importance. A city hall serves as a symbol of local government and civic pride. Additionally, City Hall being downtown directly supports Carson City's strategic goals, including economic development. It will be a cornerstone of the downtown revitalization. Efficient government by consolidating city services and operational efficiencies. Quality of life by improving lifestyle amenities for all residents, fostering growth in our businesses, and providing accessible space for public engagement and city services. Sustainable infrastructure. Often we talk about not planning for today, but needing to look out on that horizon, 10 years, 20 years from now. A new city hall will have a useful life for 50 years, setting up for the next generation. This proposal provides a unique opportunity to be part of something bigger, or to be forward thinkers, as Jed Block stated this morning. It provides an opportunity, perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, to create a town square. In addition to being in alignment with the city's strategic plan, City Hall located downtown is in alignment with the recently adopted master plan. Chapter 6 of the master plan states that downtown Carson City is the heart and soul of our community. The master plan specifically recommends seeking public-private partnerships for catalyst projects and prioritizing downtown revitalization as a key community goal. Section 6.2C encourages infill of vacant parcels and the redevelopment of underutilized properties when adaptive reuse is not feasible. It supports opportunities to consolidate smaller lots where necessary to increase the viability of redevelopment. It also encourages collaboration with property owners, developers, and the community to define the desired mix of uses and other parameters for larger redevelopment sites. Section 6.2F encourages seeking opportunities for public-private partnerships on individual projects with the potential to play a major role or serve as a future model for revitalization efforts. Additionally, Chapter 5 of the Carson City Master Plan states that the city will continue to approach economic development activities using collaborative approaches that leverage available state resources and encourage cooperation between public and private sector with other agencies and jurisdictions as appropriate. Section 5.4D encourages providing the public services and public facilities necessary to sustain a high quality of life and attract business investment. Circling back for a moment to the strategic plan, since I tend to live in that world quite a bit, the Carson City fiscal year 2022 and 2026 strategic plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors and is explicitly described as a roadmap for Carson City, which will decide and guide decisions for the next 5 years and beyond. The purpose of a strategic plan is to set priorities, to focus our energies and resources, to strengthen operations, and to ensure that employees and other stakeholders are working towards common goals. While the board sets those priorities, it is the city manager and executive staff who are tasked with carrying them out operationally. Over the past 5 years, staff has been executing your tactics, and the following 9 tactics that we have listed above have been or will be accomplished through this proposed project. Complete a space needs assessment citywide, starting with the courthouse. Evaluate expansion of the Carson City Justice Municipal Court to accommodate additional courtroom. Relocate the clerk recorder public administrator office to a space capable of housing all departments and meeting each of their respective security, staffing, and storage requirements, as well as allow for public parking and access to be used as a polling location. Acquire or lease new office space to create a centralized customer service center. Use available redevelopment and grant funds to develop a 5-year redevelopment expenditures and establish programs to retain existing businesses and stimulate new investments. Explore the possibility of a standalone convention center. Work with local, state, and federal partners to identify projects and programs that can provide a mutual benefit. Find a location to reuse the engine house or roundhouse arch. Integrate public art into gateway improvements, parks, and other capital projects. The City Hall proposal before you today aligns perfectly with the city's strategic plan and the city's master plan. It is my opinion as a professional planner and your deputy city manager that the proposed project is in the best interest of our residents and businesses.
Good evening, Mayor, board members. For the record, Robert Ellis, City Asset Services Manager. For the record, I'm a certified public manager and hold the designation of Senior Right-of-Way Agent with the International Right-of-Way Association. I joined the city 6 years ago as your real property manager. For the last 3 years, I've been in the expanded role of the City Asset Services Manager. Prior to my city service, the first decade of my professional career was spent working in residential real estate development in Silicon Valley. After moving to Nevada in 2004, I spent the next 16 years in public land and right-of-way management, energy, project funding, and bond financing for major transportation projects before being hired by the city. It is from that combined 32 years of experience in both the private and public sectors that I offer the following perspective on the proposed new City Hall project, beginning with what's driving our space needs. First off, the Juvenile Detention Center must be expanded to comply with the Prison Rape Elimination Act. Also, the courthouse must be expanded per statute, NRS 4, where a new Justice of the Peace must be in place in a courtroom once our population reaches 60,000, and we're over that now. The new Justice of the Peace, of course, comes with court clerk staff, and so that is quite a bit new office space, as well as the district attorney's office is currently outgrown their space. They need to expand. And utilizing the clerk recorder space on the first floor of the courthouse is the lowest cost option for expansion for those agencies. The Department of Alternative Sentencing is also in insufficient space in the courthouse. They're probably the most crowded of all of them in the courthouse. So we have an opportunity that's before us by the end of this calendar year. The Health and Human Services staff that's currently in what we call the annex on the corner of Roop Street and Beverly Drive can move into the space being vacated by Vitality at the end of the calendar year in the Health and Human Services building on the second floor. So those folks can move into the one facility for HHS, and then the Department of Alternative Sentencing would have the opportunity to move into that annex that's vacated, and we can remodel that to accommodate their needs. So they would be out of the courthouse. That provides extra space for the clerk staff as well as the courts that could move into their vacated space. All this is coming to us at a time when we're receiving this proposal from Hop and May Adams to combine city services into one city hall. We could take this current city hall, what we call the brick building on Proctor Street, as well as the clerk recorder moving out into one new facility. And that would allow, if we can move the clerk recorder out, it allows work to begin on the courthouse, which is required statutorily. This saves money in the long term on leasing space, either temporarily or moving the clerk recorder out and moving them to some other space, or spending money on outdated buildings. So why a new city hall? Well, we have aging municipal buildings right now that we've milked the life out of, frankly. The city hall that we're in right now was built in 1970. It's 56 years old. We did a remodel in 1997. We did some work in 2006. So I think it's fair to say we have milked the useful life out of the current city hall. We're at a point where we need to make a substantial investment, which we'll talk about later. The brick building is even older. It was built in 1947. It's now 79 years old. So we're looking at some major investment in that building if we wish to keep it. As Stephanie mentioned, there was a space needs assessment completed in 2022 that we brought to the board. It identified the need for 44,000 square feet. And the proposal that we have before us with Hopp and May Adams is 45,000 square feet, so right in the ballpark. Being able to design a new city hall allows us to address safety and security issues in new facilities, one of which, just as an example, is our current boardroom. While it's great that we have managed to build a nice boardroom within the current space, it's not secure for board members or the public, nor is it sized to, it's frequently overflowing, and so we need more room. We also have a growing city, and with the growing city comes the need for additional staff, and with that, additional space. So we're planning ahead for that future growth. The building projects I've been a part of for many years, often once they're built, they're undersized. We're looking at something that would not do that for the city, so we would not have to come back to you and say, we built too small, we're sorry, we have to build additional space. That's frequently what happens in government projects. We can address operational inefficiencies with a new city hall to support staff. We can also support redevelopment. A new city hall can revitalize downtown, encourage private sector investment. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah. I'm usually told to tone it down, sorry. We can support redevelopment by using our own funds. And basically we have redevelopment areas. We're saying we'd like to encourage redevelopment, so there's nothing like leading the way by investing our own funds downtown to say, the city's doing it, why not the private sector? And this is, by the city spending its funds, it's exactly what these funds for redevelopment were intended for. As a quick reminder, back in March, we talked about some key considerations in looking into where a new city hall might be. One of which, a big one that Stephanie covered per the 2022 retreat, was proximity to downtown. So that limits our radius to within the downtown area, not considering each and every option that is on the outskirts of the city. We want to make sure we're looking at the optimal square footage. We're not oversized for what we need. We're not going to be in the business of leasing out space to someone else, and maintaining that space and spending deferred maintenance on a building we don't need. So we want to make sure we're not too small and we're not too big. Deferred maintenance liability, we're going to talk more about that, but we have a lot of liability right now on our existing facilities. We don't want to acquire liability in another facility that an owner may not have invested as much as they should have in that facility. So now we take on that liability by essentially helping them with their investment. So we have to carefully consider that. We've talked about the boardroom. That would be proper to integrate it within a new city hall instead of being separated. We talked about being within a redevelopment area. One that's really important, I think, is the private financing option. With the Hopp and May Adams proposal, we have the opportunity for them to put up their own funding without the city having to invest its own funds initially. I don't think that can be overemphasized. A lot of other options the cities look to put up the money up front. And it's not necessarily what you look at as a partnership. It's more the city revitalizing something where, in this case, Hopp and May Adams is fronting a lot of upfront money. We'll talk about that in a second. And we talked about the statutory drivers for this project. the Hoppen May Adams proposal meets the construction timeline to move the clerk recorder out of the courthouse so we can actually start working on that and put them into a new space that works to meet that timetable. And then I emphasize the strategic plan tactics that are important to the board that we've looked at is we want to ensure there's a centralized ability to centralize customer service in one location and accommodate the clerk recorder and public administrator, which also leads into, is there sufficient parking to conduct public elections or for the public and also conduct elections as needed? You know, we hope we can use the community center continually, but what's our backup plan in case we can't? And that would be the new city hall. Some key benefits to the Hoppen May Adams proposal is they are right now, they've invested their own money in developing architectural plans to show us what they're talking about. You know, without that, you know, how do we know if this is a good idea or something we want? They're also beginning the process of investing in civil engineering. That's something we would have to do if we went alone. The legal, we have to pay a little for that, but there's upfront costs and legal expenditures for a project of this scope and size. New construction allows us the opportunity to sell off older buildings so we can use those funds to invest in a new project. And as part of that, we get to avoid investing in expensive deferred maintenance of these older buildings. And it's not that we don't invest in maintenance in a new building, but we get to push that off, you know, for, you know, decades instead of right now. We'd be looking at, well, we need to make some substantial investments in the brick and the existing city hall. We also don't have to spend funds on unrecoverable costs like leasing space for the clerk recorder or having to deal with moving folks in and out of current space and disrupting operations by moving them in the temporary space and moving them back in after remodel space. There's also a long-term value we have to consider of, we anticipate that city center will increase in density. So there's only going to be more development downtown. We can't count on there's always going to be plenty of parking. So this provides the opportunity to work with a developer where we can help control the destiny of the city. We can invest in a new city hall and have sufficient parking versus keeping the old city hall with its existing parking and be squeezed out eventually. They have to be competing for parking. Also building new, for the same dollar for dollar, we can get more square footage building new than if we tried to add on to either the courthouse or the existing city hall. Same dollar for dollar, we're not getting the same square footage. So we are able to get more from building brand new. This is my last slide where we go in. This is really intended to be a high-level view of costs. We looked at twice as many options as this and narrowed it down to a few key options to compare to the Hoppen May Adams partnership. These other two options of either option 2 and column 2, keeping the city hall and leasing out space, or option 3, buying our own land and building a brand new city hall, were the next best options versus just purely leasing, for instance, or some hybrid of keeping city hall and finding some other space to build a smaller structure somewhere else. So what I was talking about earlier, starting at the top row, design, development, soft cost, Hoppen May Adams is fronting these fees. We're not being asked to front these fees up front. They're already investing in their own property and trying to create a vision for a new city hall at that location. I plugged in $7.2 million. That number could easily be more than that. It could be upwards of $2 million. I'm trying to be very conservative with our numbers here. Option 2, keeping city hall and leasing space. We don't get away from design costs. We have to do something with our current facilities, so I plugged in $1.3 million for that. Figure if we go and buy our own lot, which don't know where that would be yet, but let's say we find it, let's say we build our own, we're fronting those $7.2 million costs. Right now, we have to find the money somewhere. We have to come back to the board and ask for those upfront costs, which are very substantial. The second row is bundled with basically your land, site, parking, renovation costs. We're talking about $8 million for the Hop and May Adams Partnership to invest in a new parking garage. So that's a direct cost to us immediately. However, if we keep City Hall and decide to lease out space, we need to then say we need to remodel City Hall and brick for the next 30 years. What's that going to look like? Conservatively, at $500 a square foot for City Hall and the brick building, we're looking at $14.5 million to do something like that. So that's again, direct cost to the city, or unlikely bonding for that. If we seek to find our own land somewhere to buy, develop that lot, landscape it, et cetera, pay fees, $2.5 million upfront for that. Short-term lease expenses may or may not exist. It's almost a wash across the board on that, so I won't spend too much time on that, but a couple $1 million you figure there. But significantly, the row below that is we have the opportunity, whether we partner with Hop and May Adams or with going out and doing it alone, we can sell the City Hall and our brick building for just under $6 million. This is based on appraisal. These are actual numbers. So we figure we can get 5.7 for that. That's income to the city to help offset some of these costs we've been talking about. And then we have furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We need to invest in any new facility. Also, even if we remodel existing space, we can't get away from spending something there. So figured around $2 million conservatively for that, 1.3 for City Hall and the brick. When you add all that up and subtotal it, the total value received with the Hop and May Adams partnership versus out-of-pocket expenses are just shy of $800,000 ahead on the Hop and May Adams partnership versus if we we keep City Hall and the brick, spend our own money, that's $19 million. Option 3 of going it alone, that's about 10 times the amount of working with the Hop and May Adams Foundation. Now, of course, those numbers don't take into account, let's look at, we have financing costs over 30 years. So what's that add up to? So we have a 30-year bond in the first column. We're looking at spending somewhere north of $55 million over 30 years for that, just like your mortgage. You know, that's the interest principal all paid down. If we keep City Hall, lease out space for the clerk recorder, we're looking at spending $13.5 million. That's just money we'll never see again. That's out the door expended. If we decide to go it alone and we don't have the prices that we're talking about working with this partnership, I put in a premium there of probably $700 a square foot, very conservative. We're seeing upwards of that, could be as high as $1,000. We don't know. Hop and May Adams is offering, just a little over $600 per square foot to build the new City Hall. So I don't know that we can guarantee that we would get that somewhere. So I put in a little premium for that in the financing of $62 million. But let's just figure after 30 years, what are our assets? How do we compare that after a 30-year time frame? Well, just a moderate 4% increase over 30 years. We could have a City Hall that's valued of about $55 million. In either situation, whether we did it ourselves or with Hop and May Adams, with keeping City Hall and our brick building, $19 million. A lot of that's discounted for. We essentially have obsolete buildings that are considered tear down structures at that point, so we don't get as much that we could sell. But we need to look at this from an asset perspective of maybe we decide after 30 years that we don't need a City Hall building and we sell it. So what's it worth? When you take all that into account, we have the total value of the Hop and May Adams partnership of just over 400 or just under 400,000 for that. But if we decided to keep City Hall and lease space, then we're essentially out all that lease revenue. So we're in the negative by 13 million. If we go it alone, do it ourselves, that's a little over 15 million. And all the other options get more expensive from there. So with that, I'd like to conclude my portion and pass it off to Sherry.
Ms. Benaboo.
Thank you, Robert. Good evening. My name is Sherry Russell Benaboo. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the record. I'm a certified public accountant and have been with the city for 15 years. Prior to the city, I worked with a public accounting firm for 11 years, and I was the audit manager on entities such as the state of Nevada and Washoe County. I've been heavily involved with governmental accounting for over 26 years. As city manager said, John Peterson, our debt consultant with J&A, is here in the audience for any questions, as well as Ryan Henry from Taft. He's our bond counsel. Please note that I did attach the spreadsheet to the item that we have been, it was our initial concept that we shared at the board workshop. And of course, the estimates have been updated as we progress through this process. As staff has been stating, since the beginning of this, the city is not proposing new taxes. The slideshow today breaks out the spreadsheet in a different way to help encourage understanding. All of the revenue in my presentation is either available today, it's budgeted, or it's conservatively estimated. Meaning I believe that revenues will come in higher due to savings and interest earnings for 28 through fiscal year 29. All projects contain contingency and all possible foreseeable costs for completion. We even have preliminary estimates for furniture and fixtures and equipment included. As Robert said, the population of Carson City has exceeded 60,000, and per the NRS is required to add an additional space for Justice of the Peace courtroom and staffing. The courthouse is located in the redevelopment district, and the staff is projecting payment of this project from the redevelopment funds. Note that the redevelopment funds per NRS 279.432 are restricted for use in the redevelopment district for projects adjacent to the redevelopment district or that have a nexus to the redevelopment district. Unfortunately, all neighborhood roads do not fit this restriction. In addition to the redevelopment funding for the courthouse, staff anticipates using $1.1 million in extraordinary maintenance in fiscal year 2029. Staff also anticipates a $7 million GO bond in fiscal year 2028 for facility improvements to the courthouse. This would be a normal 20-year low interest rate, 4.5%, something like that, bond. It would be our normal bond issue that we do. Up on the slide, you can see I've listed out those total funding at $22.8 million of available for that project. The project at $22 million. And then the difference, $800 million, could be used for furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
I liked your answer, yeah.
Oh, darn. Yeah,
We
no,
like that answer
800,000.
better, though.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
800,000. Excuse me. I was just being, hopeful. The next one I want to talk about is the juvenile facility and the remodels. Also, Robert talked about these. I have the extraordinary maintenance as the funding source for these. Extraordinary maintenance is defined in NRS 354.6105 as expenses ordinarily incurred not more than once every 5 years to maintain a local government facility or capital project. The money in this fund at the end of the fiscal year may not revert to any other fund or be a surplus for any other purpose other than the purpose specified in this subsection. So all of these projects, the remodel of the health department so that we can consolidate the health department into one building, and the remodel of the annex for alternative sentencing to give them the space they need, and the juvenile facility fit in that description. The funding for extraordinary maintenance is about $15.4 million, and you can see those projects add up to about $14.23 million. So there is about $1.2 million available for furnitures, fixtures, and equipment there. The next project is the parking garage. And I know there's a lot of questions on this. Details for the facility will come forward with the development agreement. The new garage, we are planning on paying for in cash, so there will be no debt incurred on this facility. Project estimates currently are very conservative as we're including a cost for 200 spaces. Again, just to ensure our projections are conservative and we can afford all of this. Cash is available currently with the exception of the City Hall. However, we have been made an offer on the City Hall. And again, that will all come forward more detail with the development agreement. The next item is City Hall. So the top section there is the financing term sheet that was included in the packet. That is what Hop May Adams Foundation was able to get working with their banks. There was some questions that Hop May Adams couldn't finance this, and so that term sheet does answer that question. The city's lease purchase option that we're looking at doing will follow these terms. We are estimating a $28 million building. We will be asking for $30 million just in case. We always add cushion when we go through the lease purchase option process or any debt option, because if we ask for $500,000 less or $1 million less, we have to start the process all over again. We do not anticipate it will cost more than $28 million. And we are looking at a lease purchase option. There were some questions that why would the city lease for 30 years? I 100% agree. We are not leasing for 30 years. We actually followed the board direction and got better than the board direction is what it looks like. There are no prepayment penalties included in the term sheet. And they're giving us 180-day notice before they start looking for long-term financing so that we can look for long-term financing and possibly purchase it right after construction. But the terms do say that we can purchase it anytime and just pay whatever interest is due at that time. There's no prepayment penalty. Per the term sheet, semi-annual payments, it does say that it's $1,775. This is based on the $28 million at a 5% interest rate. I was a little more conservative in my estimates. You'll see later, I based it on the $30 million at a 6% interest rate. Again, being conservative just to make sure that we can afford this. Staff also received several questions regarding the non-appropriation clause in the term sheet. This is very standard and in accordance with Nevada law. It has to say that. The debt structure, the second set of bullet points there has not changed from our March meeting. And just to lay this out there for the public, what I mean by debt service is you have a mortgage payment every month that you pay interest and principal. It's the same thing with the city. We just call it debt service and we do it on an annual basis. That's our interest and principal payments over each year is what we call debt service. And so real quick on this slide, as we presented in March, until 2031, 32, when that redevelopment fund sunsets, we will pay 100% of the debt service out of the redevelopment fund. And then for 2032 and 33, we would split the payment between the general fund and the redevelopment. 2034, we would pay it all from the general fund because both redevelopment funds sunset. So consolidated taxes, we got some concerns here because it is our most volatile revenue. I say it all the time. And we are fortunate being a consolidated municipality. We are allowed to pledge 15% of our C-tax towards debt. Most counties and cities can only do 10 or 15%. But because we're consolidated, we're allowed to do 15. That amounts to $6.7 million we can pledge. We never get close to that number because we use it for other things. Our typical debt service is about $3 to $3.5 million. We're actually a little under the $3 million right now.
Jerry, that's per year. Can you just clarify?
That is
that's
per year. Debt service is always per year.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's important to clarify that.
Yes, absolutely. That's per year. So in fiscal year 2031, The same year as the first redevelopment district sunsets, general fund debt service declines from 2.8 million to 2.2 million. If we take into account the limit of 3.5 million, the city would have room for added debt service of about 1.2 million. In 2034, the same year as the second redevelopment district sunsets, general fund debt service declines to just $567,000. Using the same 3.5 million would allow additional 2.9 million in debt service. Again, we're paying off debts early, so we would be able to add debt service without changing our current budget. Projects are being paid off. Basically, the Sheriff's Detention Center and some parks projects is what's paying off. And so we're asking for this to replace it. And I want to talk really quick about what do I mean by sunset, just so the public understands. Just in case, so the current redevelopment carves out a piece of the tax rate, the property tax rate, and of each building that's inside the redevelopment district. And that incremental tax rate is revenue to the redevelopment fund. So when they sunset, basically that carve out, that tax rate that's been put in the redevelopment goes back to the normal distribution. So it goes back to the general fund, the senior center, supplemental indigent, the school district, the water subconservancy. It goes back to its normal distribution. Or to put it a different way, the entities will all get back the tax revenue from those properties previously diverted to redevelopment, if that helps. These funds would be available in the future to be used at the board's discretion, obviously. And it's purely coincidence that debt service is retiring at the same time the redevelopment districts are sunsetting. We couldn't have set this up if we tried. It's pretty amazing to me, actually. So to go back,
Please,
yes.
could you repeat that about the debt service expiring? What
Yeah, so we're paying off debt service. As I mentioned, they're decreasing the same years as we're sunsetting the redevelopment agency. So we're going to see a decrease in debt service, and we're asking you to add this new debt service, but you're still going to see that increase in revenue from the sunset.
But we still are making payments on this well after the sunset of the redevelopment.
Right, but we're not,
Okay.
but we're paying off old debt. So it won't change our balance sheet, the new debt we're putting on it.
It won't impact our general fund because you're gonna replace.
Right.
Is what, so the same 3 million we're paying now out of the general fund for debt, couple of bonds will pay, this will replace it and will be at the same 3 million.
Right.
That's all she's saying
But
is
when
we have
it's-
sufficient.
Right, and when it sunsets, there'll be additional revenue we're not even accounting for, that you can do whatever you want with.
Because it comes back to the
Right.
general fund.
So to go back to the slide up here, the debt service facility on the courthouse, for the $7 million I mentioned, I'm anticipating a $725,000 debt service payment. I think that's very high. I was conservative. Same thing with the city hall. I already told you I was conservative with the highest $30 million at 6%. So that gives us a total debt service of $2,880,000. And then if you add that to the current debt service in 34, the 567,600, you get 3,447,600. So that's the highest we can possibly. I mean, I can't even imagine it'd be higher, and we're still under the 3.5 million. So just to go back to the spreadsheet for just a second, because I did have some questions on that. I just want to say the top section is the revenue piece. The bottom section is expenses. We start this spreadsheet in 26 with a zero balance. We add revenue, subtract expenses, we come to an ending balance. That ending balance goes up to the beginning balance in fiscal year 27. Again, expenses, revenue. By the end of 29, we're saying that we're complete with all the projects, and what's remaining is $1,986,000. After that are just bond payments. So I did not add all the other revenue that we'll collect. I only offset the bond payments because I did not want to muddy the waters with revenue that we'll be getting after the projects are complete. So that's how the spreadsheet works. And as your CFO, this analysis has been provided to discuss the question, can we afford this? And being very conservative as possible, the answer is yes.
And it also demonstrates, just for the public, because I've gotten a lot of questions also on, I don't want a tax increase, I'm on a fixed income. So there'll be no
There will be
property tax
no
change
tax increase of
necessary.
any kind for this.
Right. Right. And we don't have that much room in our property tax rate that would generate dollars anyway because of the 3% caps on properties. So
Yeah, there is no need for any increase of any kind for this.
I just think it's important that people understand. Right.
All right, Mayor and Board, thank you. Again, for the record, Glenn Martell, City Manager. I'd like to thank Stephanie and Robert and Sherry for their hard work as your team in preparing this presentation this evening. Should this development agreement and subsequent any processes you identify beyond this go forward, here's just a sampling of the work effort that would have to occur. Obviously, we'd have to complete the lease purchase agreement we were just talking about, and as far as our partnership with Hop and May Adams goes, that would include any the formalizing the buyout agreement, setting the terms, construction price, all of those kind of things. We'd have to also complete the development agreement for the parking garage and the maintenance of the parking garage. As Sherry said and Robert said, those are separate entities. That is a separate partnership from the City Hall. Due to the fact that we are paying cash for the parking garage, not bonding for it in the longer term, that we cannot mix those monies. So that we will have a different partnership as the city, either with Hop and May Adams or some other entity that we would all agree on as a part of that development agreement to be determined. We would have to return to the Board of Supervisors for approval of any agreements and elevations of the building similar to what it might end up over here. And what we've talked about internally as your team, with both with the development agreement and the parking garage agreement, would be that potentially as fast as 2 or 3 months, we could be back with a draft, get your input, make sure that we're proceeding in the direction you may provide this evening. And then that would give us another couple of months to finalize that, bring that back to the board for execution, and keep us on the timeline to be under construction in that January, February 27 timeframe to meet the intent of having the courthouse clear for the clerk in early 29, so the court at that time can finish their next line. The other part that would be is a public charrette for the town square. I know the foundation, the Hop and May Adams Foundation, committed to that. I know that the foundation is still committed to that should this project move forward. So time to be determined, obviously, pending approval this evening, but that would have to move on. Also, the special use permit would have to come forward for the parking garage that you see on the left side of the left exhibit over here. That one, although it is primarily permitted in the downtown mixed-use space, it does require a special use permit to come forward. So the Planning Commission would see that as well. And then all of that pending, we'd have to look at the final documents. As I said earlier, there are no final bid documents or floor plans or anything prepared for these projects, just enough to make sure that the bidding or the estimates you're hearing this evening are accurate. So as I mentioned earlier, that bidding process, you actually have your contract administrator on that team on behalf of the city to make sure that the preparation of those bid documents, the monitoring of the timeline, and the opening of those bids do in fact meet NRS so that the city is covered from a transparency standpoint. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on if you approve this evening. Your team, the Hop and May Adams team, a lot of people get really busy really quick to stay on that timeline. So just want to make sure you're aware of all of that would be working on your behalf. Okay, seeing no questions. So with that, I'd like to head into my summary, if you don't mind. So back in 2025, a group of concerned citizens held 4 public meetings to discuss the town square master plan, or what some of us refer to affectionately as the white paper that Hop and May Adams Foundation presented to this board on February 21st, 2025. So this nice little packet here where they spent the time, and thank you for spending the time. There's some recommendations and observations in here that I wanted to go through on your behalf to see this. So some of the recommendations in here, and I'm just quoting, obviously not the whole report, but some of the stuff that's in here that I've highlighted. One quote is that others worried that the proposed private-public partnership to build the city hall could saddle residents with property tax increases during the proposed 30-year financing period. As you just heard here, that is an adamant no. There are no property tax increases necessary or anticipated. And as you said, Mayor, even if we wanted to have that conversation, it wouldn't get us where we need to be. So that is a no. In another line in the book here, it was noted that more importantly, quote, Mr. Metcalf reported that the foundation is open to changing elements of the proposal and that the public meetings would be held later this summer once the city had decided on a plan of action for expanding or replacing the current city hall. It's rather timely. He said the summer of this year, and here we are, July. That's definitely summer 2026. And as I said earlier, should this board continue to move forward this evening, again, I can confirm that the foundation remains committed to a public charrette to identify possible specific amenities to create and maintain that small community feel within the proposed town square. Additionally, it's noted that the foundation-backed redevelopment project should balance profit generation with elements of community enhancement and engagement. Additionally, these amenities would neither be owned nor operated by the city. If approved this evening, a development agreement is mentioned that would be brought forward for a review and your hopeful final approval will contain all of the details necessary for any partnerships to support the town square concept. I can tell you sitting here, though, right now, the extent of the partnership could possibly be that we'd be a maintenance agreement for the town square. That would be a private entity. Anything associated with the stores or anything with any future development of which is not a part of this conversation would be a separate opportunity, nothing to do with us as the city. Another insight from the group was that, quote, although Carson City has scattered spots of vibrant small businesses within the urban core, we have too few spaces large enough to gather to enjoy the surrounding beauty and engage with homegrown artisans, vendors, and entertainers. I couldn't agree more. That's one of the things I love about this proposal. The proposed town square is twice the Brewery Arts Center, over an acre and a half of open space to gather and enjoy entertainment, gather with your neighbors, talk about what's going on in the community. So with approval of this project this evening, anticipating approval, that the town square would also move forward. It's a part of the project as shown on the tentative site plan initially. Everything north of this building between there and the existing nugget with some access excluded is the town square. As I said, just right now in that rough drawing, I'll say conservatively an acre and a half. Twice the size. And I agree. I think it's a fantastic space to enjoy what we all love here about our small community and be able to gather and engage with your fellow residents. Under the category of look and feel in the booklet, it's recommended that buildings should fit within the current scale, mass, and profile of downtown businesses. Additionally, the motifs of the building should honor the historic roots of Carson City. And finally, commenting on our recognition from HGTV on our small community look and feel, the look and feel of the surrounding neighborhoods, the brick arches, and locally quarried sandstone exteriors of many buildings, many historic buildings should be a part of any development. As you can see on both exhibits over here, the parking garage and the parking garage in particular draws from the iconic Virginia and Truckee Railroad engine house, using a series of repeating arches that celebrate Carson City's railroad heritage, creating a distinctive civic landmark. And I just want to point out that one of the buildings that was referenced in this booklet is the Laxalt building. When you look at the Laxalt building, you see the same brick, the same tone of brick, the same arch structure, the same sandstone highlights, although the Laxalt building will not have near the real sandstone highlights that we are proposing here. The extensive brick masonry on your exhibits references the adjacent historic Laxalt building, seamlessly blending the new development with the character and craftsmanship of downtown Carson City. It is a modern campus rooted in history. While designed to meet today's municipal and parking needs, the project embraces architectural forms, materials, and proportions that reflect Carson City's historic built environment. The scale, facade articulation, and materials were carefully selected to complement surrounding historic structures, ensuring the project enhances rather than overwhelms the downtown district. Just as a quick point of information, in one of the letters I read in preparing for today's meeting, somebody was still referencing a 4-story city hall. That is not what we're talking about today. We are looking at that building right there on the right side on its own and the right side of the exhibit to the left. It is a proposed three-story building for 45,000 square feet, blending in rather well, I believe, with the Nugget, the Laxalt building, the Capitol, the Blaisdell building, and other adjacent buildings. The landscape town square stone entry features, and coordinated architectural elements, establishing a welcoming gateway benefiting Nevada's capital city and its historic downtown core. By incorporating references to the V&T engine house, historic masonry traditions, and local architectural character, this project honors Carson City's heritage while providing lasting civic infrastructure for future generations. Finally, you may have noticed a piece of the V&T engine house on the cart. This keystone was once at the apex of one of the historic arches from our own engine house, Carson City's own engine house. The keystone sits at the center of the arc, locking all other stones in place. Its placement in the center is critical, as it bears additional weight and redirects compressive stress. Without this action, the surrounding stones would slip and not support. Symbolically, I believe this keystone exemplifies the proposed City Hall. The new City Hall would sit at the center of Carson City, bearing the weight of government while providing opportunities for community engagement, redirecting stress into civil discourse, and supporting businesses by engaging in its own revitalization. Reflected in the building's architecture, Carson City remains proud of its past while investing confidently in its future. Thank you, Mayor and Board. The team is ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have a question? You want to start? Supervisor Giomi?
Glenn, a quick question. I know you covered it, but the city's not funding potentially beyond right-of-way or road or something, the public plaza part of this, right? I mean, that isn't what we're funding or contemplating funding.
No, sir. And actually, thank you for bringing that up. That was another point that was brought up in some of the letters, that we were giving the right-of-way away, as I mentioned in my intro. Quite the opposite, as was discussed earlier, roads remain one of our city's biggest challenges and most publicly questioned processes. And when you look at the roads that are included at this, Fall Street, north and south, Telegraph east and west, a little bit of Spear east and west, and maybe a north portion of Proctor Street, those serve currently empty parking lots. So with this project development and the investment in the parking garage, what we looked at is those streets would no longer serve a purpose, giving a development project that looked anything like this. So in my mind, it is much more cost beneficial, as well as from a community standpoint, more beneficial to convert that right of way into a portion of the town square. What those exact numbers are, we don't know yet, pending design. But yes, a lot of that right of way, in particular, that block stretch between Plaza and Fall, that converts directly to the town square. A portion of Fall, as it runs north from Proctor towards Robinson, converts as it goes by between the proposed City Hall and the parking garage. So we are not paying for that. That is just converting our existing right-of-way into a usable community space, as well as the space that goes to the development area becomes tax generating, because now it's developed and it's in private hands. So in my mind, a double benefit.
And then Glenn and Sherry, obviously this is, I mean, we're not approving an agreement today. There are a small encyclopedia full of details that have to be presented to us for review. But I mean, I want to confirm that when those details are in that agreement, we're talking about a purchase price that's agreed upon and the delivery of a product that's agreed upon by us before we approve anything. So if we say, if they say they're going to deliver X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be, a 45,000 square foot building that looks like this, like we tell it, that's their obligation to deliver that. And that's the plan, is to put that into the purchase agreement or lease agreement or whatever the case may be, correct?
Yes, Supervisor Jome, you're absolutely correct. So, and I like the encyclopedic reference. There is a lot of details to be worked out.
About half of it's in the room that even know what an encyclopedia
well,
is.
I remember getting the yearly yearbook updates, and those were really
Me
cool
too.
because you could look at the updated stuff. So that was always good. But no, your DA team, Dan and Adam and Garrett, in a couple of the meetings, we've had extensive, a lot of questions from them as to how this might look. And the Hop and May Adams Foundation attorney as well has been engaged. I just spoke to their attorney earlier today. And yes, he understands that in particular, the lease purchase agreement is somewhat more standard, if you will, because a lot of entities do the lease purchase agreement, more of a customization versus a creation like we would have to do on the parking garage. But again, it depends on exactly, what we might want to do as a city, how that partnership might look. As Sherry mentioned, we are currently planning for 200 spaces. That is a very conservative number. Well, I shouldn't say very. It might be as low as 180 or so, but some of that is pending the final design of City Hall, which again, at this stage, wanting to come back to this board and get more direction, I did not want to invest any more of your team's time or the Hoppin Bay Adams Foundation time, confirming that the 45,000 square foot building works, gives us the opportunity to grow in the future while meeting all of our needs for today. I felt was a good point to come back to you and say, okay, here it is. So parking is to be determined upon final design. There are approximately 100 people that would work in that building. That's the minimum, but you also have to account for the citizens coming and going and doing their business there. The businesses coming and going, doing business there. That is all to be worked out between the final design and your economic and our planning and economic development department. We have guidelines on public parking. The other part of that parking calculation that remains to be done is we have to have some conversations. One thing is that this room would be in that new building. It would be on the left side of the City Hall, first floor. As you went in, you turn immediately left is what we're talking about should we move forward. And here, when you have a meeting on Thursday morning, you have the parking lot from the community center. Usually not much else going on, maybe an election year, sorry, Scott, on a Thursday when we have some complications. But in this scenario, you would be having a Board of Supervisors meeting while your team is working in the building, while other citizens are in there getting business licenses or working with the clerk to get something recorded. So we need to figure out what that number looks like. My anticipation sitting here today is maybe 160 or 180. So that's why Sherry again was mentioning that the 8 million for the parking garage is conservative. Long answer to your question, Supervisor. Short answer is yes, all of those details were to be worked out. And as I said in my summary, what we've talked about with Dan is coming back in 2 or 3 months with a draft of each of those, the lease purchase agreement on the development agreement side, as well as an outline of the partnership and development agreement, if you will, for the parking garage. This board could give us feedback, help us fine tune it if needed. You'd also, any feedback we have on the elevation you see here or on the screen, we could take and fine tune that, and then that would be brought back to this board as well, so that, as you said, you can see what you're going to buy should you decide to move forward today.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make sure that we're not talking about, well, a couple of things, because back when we provided direction, we said we wanted off-ramps at 3, 5, 10, and you came back with basically off-ramps whenever we want. And I wanted to make sure that the price is not contingent upon when we take the off-ramp. We're setting the price, or the intention is we're setting the price in the agreement. So the price of the building will be set in the agreement.
Yes, that's the plan, is this, that's why we're doing a lease purchase option up front, is it helps give the city some protections, helps ensure that building will be ours when it's done. When we buy it out, the land and the building will be included in the price, the 28 million. And as we make payments, if we don't buy it out right away, as we make payments, the principal will go on those payments. And so we will only be paying out whatever we have not paid down and whatever little interest.
Yeah, like a regular mortgage.
Like a regular mortgage, exactly. That's what's been offered to us.
On the parking garage, because I know that the details on that have been lacking, because that's a little more of a less usual, I'll say. I think there are plenty of examples around. I know the parking garage for Las Vegas City Hall is a public-private partnership in cooperation with the Smith Center, which is a performing arts center in Las Vegas. The Reno Aces ballpark in Reno, I used to have season tickets to the Aces. That comes to mind. That's another. So there are examples of it around that we can get. The parking that we're talking about buying, because we will have an ownership interest in that parking garage, right? That's the intention.
That's the intention,
with the outright
yes.
purchase, we'll have an ownership interest in those
Purchase an
spaces.
interest into perpetuity or for 99 years, or buy those spaces, yeah. And it, again, it hasn't been all hashed out yet, but that's,
So,
that's the point.
I understand that that's going to come back, but the
Yes.
intention is that people who are coming to City Hall for business during the day are not going to have to pay to park,
No, they will not.
right? I mean, I think that's critical in this agreement, that people are coming to do business at City Hall get to park for nothing.
Yes,
Other uses, even the state may want to use it, but they're going to have to pay because they're not contributing to this,
exactly.
despite that they were offered an opportunity to contribute.
Sure.
Okay, I'm good for now. I'll shut up and let somebody else talk.
Okay. Does anybody else want?
Well, I
Questions now, or-
during conversations, the numbers of people who would be housed, and Mr. Martell, you just spoke to that. So it is, for everyone's understanding, the idea is that there will be approximately 100 employees housed in City Hall, but there are other considerations, citizens using it. Can you just speak a little bit more to that? And
Sure. So yes, you're correct. When you look at those office spaces that Robert mentioned earlier, the brick City Hall component of engineering from Public Works Yard and the clerk's office, when you look at those numbers today, it comes in right about 100, give or take 5 or 10, depending on who may be hiring at any particular week. So that's today's projection. That's today as it exists. Part of what the City Hall projects is growth in each of those departments as well. So a part of the exercise that we did with the architect, with all the directors and the clerk, as well as the elected that would be in there with the assessor and the treasurer's office, went through a couple of analysis with the architect to make sure that the layout worked, that the footages were okay, access was good, those kind of things. So I thought they were a really good couple of productive meetings. But again, I would maybe call it a 75% solution, because again, I decided that I didn't want to take up any more of your team's time, nor did I want to take any of the architect's time. I wanted to just be able to confirm that the 45,000 feet is a good number. If that's something you choose to move forward with, we can go into final design and make sure that the exact office locations and all that stuff fits, and that'll be a part of the plan. So 100 and so today, and then you add, I think there's 2 or 3 in finance for growth. I think there's a couple in the clerk for growth. Engineering, I think, has like 10 projected for growth. Those kind of things are all in there as well. So
and the footprint could accommodate that.
yes, so all of that in the footprint that we've got to, again, I'll call it 75% stage, those growth desks, those growth offices are included in that square footage. What's not included yet is some of the unknowns that we haven't got to. So right now, when you, just for comparison, is when you look at those spaces, and again, you can get slightly different numbers depending on whether you include a restroom or a hallway or whatever you might do. Right now, we're using about 39,000 square feet amongst the various buildings for those same folks as we operate today, without, well, that includes this space, but not some of the support. So yes, there's growth in there. It's 39,000 and change, easy numbers today. You round up to 40,000, you have 5,000 square feet, give or take, that we can flex for final design and support future growth, as Robert said. The last thing I would want to do is come to this board in 2 months or 3 months and say, yes, here's your footprint, this works, go build it, and then have to come back and say, oops, we missed it. That is not what I want to do. So some future growth is included in that number as well, to be as rubbing that crystal ball, looking 10, 20 years out
And
as well.
future growth, mindful of our build out of 80,000.
Correct. Yes, and that's most of those numbers that you hear are included of that. When you want, again, talking to the assessor, treasurer, clerk, engineering, they've rubbed that crystal ball. That's what they think. But again, we have that extra space that's, I won't call it extra, but that we could flex if needed. So again, I think we've been very responsible with the city's space, and yet respectful of things we don't know today. As good as we can be sitting in the room with all of your team members and a very smart architect that's done this for his lifetime, we're going to miss something, and I'd rather err on the side of 500 more square feet that somebody in the future could use than not.
Thank you.
Supervisor Horton.
Glenn, I think it's important that, that you keep an eye on future growth, that you look into that. We have built several facilities in the city in my time here. Station 51 was ample size when it was built. It didn't last very long. You know, a few years into it, guess what? It was too small. When we look at the old water utility building where Parks is located now, we built that out, squeezed in one extra office, you know, thought, hey, this is good. You know, we can do this. Guess what? Didn't work. Then we wound up building offices where? In the warehouse, which forced us to do what? Build a new warehouse. We moved down the street to the utility building where Steffi and I worked. And when we built that building, we built it with 3 extra offices. And we thought, okay, that's good. We're going to get here. Well, guess what? Now we're consuming and have been consuming the warehouse and operations space with office space. This is unfortunate, and it changes the way we do business. So I would ask all of you to make sure that you look at these numbers and that you feel confident and comfortable with the fact that we are planning for future growth. It's important that we do that.
I appreciate the comment, Supervisor Horton, and just to let you know, in one of the team meetings that we had with the potential users of this building, Public Works and the development engineering team with the planning and engineering team, we're talking about that exact thing. And what Public Works threw into the conversation was, hey, we've got some extra space in here. If we move, I think it's the GIS and facilities team out of the Public Works building on Bud-Eye, we could utilize some of this space. They can operate over there and integrate there. They don't have to be over in Public Works. And that frees up some space in the Public Works building as it exists today for future growth there. So I believe that that is in perfect alignment with what your thought is. And again, going into the last couple of design conversations, I would anticipate that cooperation to continue amongst your team.
So for me, looking at all of this, I was just a little bit disappointed that the agenda title for this item really does not permit discussion on the parking garage because it isn't included. But I do believe the terms are essential to evaluating this full scope and the impact of the proposed new City Hall project. We're constrained by our agenda, so I can't address some of these issues today, but I wanted to let the board know and the public that I will propose a change to the proposed motion to give a little more direction, because maybe that's on us to make sure we give clear direction to the city manager as the project manager to ensure that the board and the public has the opportunity to fully review and consider the parking garage components well before any final documents are completed. So I think that's probably our sticky point that might be out there a little bit because it's something very new for Carson City, right? We have not done a partnership type of deal with revenue, free parking, and all these details. So just want to let you know, I'm going to propose something different because my questions really revolve around the parking garage that I can't ask right now, but I will not miss it. I think overall that I want to say thanks to the team, and I've really been trying to I think I can speak for this on behalf of all of us, that we all read every single comment, pro and con, right? You referenced a booklet that we got from a group that had ideas for us to consider. I know sometimes maybe they think we don't, but we read every single word that people communicate with us. And I hope and think that the vast majority of the questions have been answered. But I do want to thank the public, right? And it doesn't matter if you're on the pro side or the con side. It does not. Because all comments help us get a better product. And that's what it's really all about at the end of the day, is that we end up with the best product that we can get. And so I just appreciate in advance. I'm doing this in advance of public comment that's coming up. Thank you for being respectful and just providing your comments for improvements or rationales for why you do or don't like things. So great job. Thanks for giving it a stab to answer the questions of the public because it's very important. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Appreciate your time. Looking
Okay.
forward to any feedback we might get, a Mayor. Yes, the parking garage is a unique critter, if you will, and any direction we can get from the board is appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, does anyone need a break or should we try and get some? Okay, we'll take maybe, we'll take just a brief, quick recess just for, it's almost 7, might need a facility. No problem. And then we'll come right back. comment, and I'm going to go in order. So Carol Wilson, you came this morning to sign up for 5:30 testimony. So come on up. You have to push the button and it turns green. There you go. You're ready.
I'm not green.
The button is
Madam
around.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is it working?
There you go.
Okay. Board of Supervisors, my name is Carol Wilson. My husband, who is now deceased, and I and our 3 children moved here in 1972. So he had a business for the first 32 years here in Carson, an electronics engineering business. And I was employed by Carson City School District in a clerical position. I want to say that it seems rushed to decide on whether to sign the term sheet tonight. I see some flaws. Do you sign a document if you're not completely satisfied with it? On the line that says trustee, it says to be announced or TBD, to be determined. Are you sure you want to sign a document that isn't complete, hasn't been determined? So that's my first question to you. Unfortunately, I have not followed your discussions about the Ormsby House. It seems as if it has been dismissed as a candidate for using it to repurpose it for a city hall. But think about that location. You've indicated that the new city hall should be attractive to tourists. Oh my, if a tourist comes driving down Carson Street, there's our beautiful historic state capitol and our beautiful legislative mall. And then on the corner of 5th Street in Carson is an embarrassing, I would say dilapidated, abandoned building and lots. Now, I think the city should take some drastic action to make that corner of Main Street, Carson Street, to make it more attractive and appealing to tourists and to the residents of Carson City who can be proud of their beautiful city. Now, maybe a supervisor or a mayor could fill me in on why was the Ormsby House dismissed as a candidate?
I can have an offline discussion because you've got 13 seconds, so
Oh, I do?
keep going.
All right.
And I give you all your time.
I heard a comment that said Ormsby House to Mr. Neighbors. And Mr. Neighbors is a part of the Hop and May Adams Foundation. So what is Mr. Neighbors' position there? And has he also promised to buy the current city hall? You're shaking your
He
head
did
no,
not.
thank you.
He's not the buyer, but thank you. I have to go on to the next person.
Thank you,
or
Mayor.
we will not get this completed tonight. Thank you, Carol, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Okay, next on the list, I have Betsy Strasburg.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we have a lot of people that want to speak tonight. Could we maybe get, there's 4 chairs available.
Oh, fill
If
them
you
up.
want to speak, get up here and get in a chair, so.
We can go faster.
We want to give everybody their 3 minutes. If you want to talk, get up here in a chair and get yourself a microphone. Let's
So
get ready
I'd
to
be
go.
happy to. Well, except for now, they're not in order. Take-
Yeah, we
I
would
will.
like to go in order, please.
Let's go. The next round, I'll call you up.
Okay.
Because he made an announcement and they took it. So we'll go in order on the next round. So, Ms. Strasburg,
Betsy Strasberg. I'm a concerned citizen of Carson City. I've been to these meetings many, many times, and every time I come over here, there is a presentation of the staff that is not shared as late material. Only the public comments were shared as late material. And given my finance background for over 35 years, I would have loved to have gone through those numbers. And we never get that chance. And I've spoken about this to the city manager, Mr. Martell, and this is something that needs to be readjusted so that we get all material before the meeting. The second thing is, if you all remember the Anderson Collard Ranch project that all of you unanimously rejected in June of 2023, the reason was this was the plan and they were only talking about the top and not the entire parcel. We're doing the same thing tonight. I would have liked to have seen the whole thing, not in this setting. We requested a town hall to discuss this so that we can ask questions rather than watching people's back and sometimes muffled answers. So this time the applicant is the city, and the city should honor the facts that they rejected in the Anderson Collard Ranch project because they did not discuss the entire thing. There are several questions that we have as residents about this project. What site deletions and adjustments will be required? What transportation adjustments will be required? Utilities, etc. As the mayor said, that there are tons of questions on the parking. We need to discuss this together before you sign on the dotted line. Otherwise, there is a suspicion that you're hiding something. And in the staff report, there's nothing about the foundation. There is no charter, nothing about their tax return. So we have to take your word for it that he is a nice person and will do nice things in Carson City. I hope that the board will do a town hall where residents can ask questions before this burden is placed on the taxpayer. If it is such a great deal, and I don't know because I get new information every time I come over here that I didn't have before coming over here, then it should go to vote. You are committing funds for future boards without a resident's mandate. If you are so confident about this project, let's have a ballot and let Carson City vote on this big project. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lapierre?
Good evening, Board. My name is Garrett Lapierre. I'm a lifelong resident of Carson City. I'm born and raised right here in Nevada's capital city. And I'm speaking today as a private citizen and not on behalf of any organization or group that I serve. I'm here because I'm genuinely excited about this project. And I want to say that out loud. Let's start with the financing. A public-private partnership structured with low interest rate government bonds and a lease option agreement with built-in outs for the city. That's not reckless spending. That's sophisticated, responsible deal-making. As someone who has spent over 26 years in real estate, I can tell you that leverage is the foundational principle of smart investing. You use strategic financing to acquire a lasting asset while protecting your liquidity and keeping your options open. This structure does exactly that. The city isn't locked in blindly. It has exit ramps. That's not a risk. That's good stewardship. Now let's talk about the site. The Carson Nugget parking lots, long underutilized, sitting largely dormant in the heart of our downtown, are owned by the May and Hop Adams Foundation. And if you need proof that this group knows how to build something worth being proud of, walk 2 blocks and go have dinner at Cucina Lupo. They transformed that Curry Street building into something that our downtown brags about. These are good partners. This is a good site. And when those surface parking lots give way to a modern city hall and the development that follows, those parcels with the private development, now they go back on the tax rolls. And that's new property tax revenue that benefits every resident of this community. One smart move downtown has a way of inviting the next one and the next one after that. Now, I've heard some folks suggest that this decision should go back to the voters. And with respect, I'd like to push back on that. The voters already weighed in. They elected you 5 people on the dais today to make these kinds of decisions. Representative democracy doesn't mean pawning the tough calls back to the public every time there's a little noise in the room. It means having the courage to lead. And that's what you're elected to do. And I trust you to do it. And finally, building new isn't extravagant. It's math. Retrofitting aging buildings that are already past their functional lifespan costs more, delivers less, and asks taxpayers to keep pouring money into structures that will need attention 10 years from now. A new building built right, built once, with a lifespan that serves the next generation of Carson City residents, now that's a responsible choice. That's the fiscally conservative choice. Carson City's always been a city that's bet on itself. This is one of those moments, and I hope you'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens, you can take that slot when he leaves. You're next on the list. Okay, do you want to state your name?
For the record, my name is Adrienne Phoenix,
And I'm John Brummer.
and we are honored to speak on behalf of the Sierra Nevada Realtors. First, we want to thank Mayor or City Manager Martell for meeting with the Government Affairs Committee on March 13th to explain the vision, necessity, timing, and fundraising for the new City Hall. Sierra Nevada Realtors is very excited about the proposed public-private partnership with the May and Hop Adams Foundation, and believe that a new City Hall proposal is fiscally responsible, and the overall vision of the $2 million investment will result in significant economic growth to Carson City, especially during the Nevada legislative sessions. Sierra Nevada Realtors would like to applaud the city manager in the proposed term sheets and believe that it remains consistent with the discussions for our March 13th meeting and the last Board of Supervisors hearing for this item. Sierra Nevada Realtors support strategic municipal projects that are significant to economic growth, increasing property values, and enhancing the quality of life for the residents. Sierra Nevada is excited to go on record today and support this agenda item. However, Sierra Nevada Realtors still reserve the right to change this position as we continue to monitor the project. Thank you for the opportunity in speaking today.
Thank you. Okay, to fill those seats would be Denny French and Paula Peters. Mr. Nagel?
Thank you kindly. Richard Nagel for the record. Residents requested a town hall to discuss the space required by the 4 groups that you are trying to house in the new city hall. Residents want details on why this new city hall was needed, particularly when critical space was just for the clerk recorder. What is the staff count required and the square foot? You got it? Okay, I'm sorry. What is the staff required and the square foot? When can we get this information? We know the current occupants of the city hall. What is the staff count and square foot of this group? Why can't they stay where they are? Is it due to deferred maintenance because you are using the deferred maintenance fund for the juvenile detention? So this diversion of funds was intentional, man-made, and now in effect. This was created by you. And you are solving this problem from a $4 million owned building to a $36 million lease building for 30 years. How does this make sense? Brick building. What is the staff count of the building department and the planning department? Why can't the public who are footing the cost of the new city hall know this data? Not all of these groups need to be downtown. There is not a reason for the clerk recorder spot downtown or the building department or the planning department. Think creatively to serve your constituents. Both Curry buildings and the Capitol Plaza building offer possibility, as does the Ormsby building. You can close off some floors of the Ormsby house if you do not need them now. As we know, we can drive from one end of Carson to the other in 15 minutes, so nobody needs to be in the same building. When the cost is 9 times the price of the current building, What is the traffic of the departments and what are you trying to co-locate? With online transactions, artificial intelligence, who will come to visit you in the new city hall? Or do you really want a huge downtown building and parking structure just for stature to provide 30 years of income to the foundation, the builders, because we like them, but on the backs of the residents? Form 990 tax form of the foundation shows the portfolio of real estate holdings, but only 2 million in annual income. Have you asked how this additional income from the city hall will be used by the foundation? Maybe housing for 100 men that Neighbors is planning in Boise, Idaho for his church. Have you seen the video?
Thank
I'm going
you,
to give you the
Mr.
links for
Engel.
this.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens and then Sandra Owens, you can take the vacant spot. Ms. Stevens?
Hi, good afternoon. Many of you already know me, but for the record,
Closer. No, you were right.
oh, okay. But for the record, my name is Karen Stevens. We have lived in Carson City since the early 90s, over 3 decades. My kids went to this grade school, middle school, and high school, and finally one graduated from UNR. I will keep my comments brief, but I have questions that have developed over this meeting. And I'd like to know why the city has not conducted town halls or listening tours regarding the city hall like they did for the master plan. Most of us are just confused about what's going on because we don't have any information, and really there's not been much transparency, in my humble opinion. The other questions I have is the PowerPoint by the city manager indicates that there will be charrettes, and then a couple minutes later, he says that he can't guarantee that the charrettes will be held. So are they, or will they not be held? The other question I have is, if in the event costs exceed the anticipated expenditures, can't the city manager or her staff go to the legislature and request to have an increase in property taxes be made, like was suggested by Stacy Woodbury? I think that you might do that. It's my opinion, but you guys are only here for most of you for another 2 years, and we're going to have to live with what happens with this city hall and the burden that the expenses are going to fall on our shoulders. So with that, thank you for my time.
Thank you. Paula will be, oh no, sorry, Denny will be next, but Mary Sonata is signed up for the next seat. Mr. French?
Thank you, Mayor. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I'll first read this, and then I'd like to say very quickly, why didn't the city offer to buy 2 of the foundation's vacant and blighted parking lots? Was that to avoid the possibility of a public vote? I also just was asking for clarity because I couldn't hear Sherry's answer on the fact that the property would be the city's at the conclusion of that 30-year. And that include we can't bring up the parking, but I want a clear answer in that, and so I think I'll be able to get that later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, what?
I'm just gonna take a breath here. And I appreciate your patience.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm gonna
I
need,
just want to make sure I don't need to
gonna
call
need
for
this
help.
time. feel awkward with this. But when I try to absorb what was put out today that doesn't match what I was studying, or that there's new information I have questions about, and that this time does not really provide me, because if I ask, I can't get answers. So I've gone to an individual, which will get back with one of the answers. But I really want you to know that until today, I hadn't heard maybe that that property would be ours. It was all speculative, and even when you had, Mayor, had mentioned it at one point, thank you.
Okay.
Was the
Miss-
time up then?
Oh, no, you had more. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were done.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't look at that clock. It's setting off triggers in my head that make it hard for me to concentrate. It's not a epilepsy or anything like that. Don't panic, but it is a distraction. Thank you. So I have other concerns. And since I wasn't able, and no one was, to have a final statement about the meetings that preceded this break, and then now, that's awkward, and I'd like that to be reconsidered. Any break that is that long should allow that the conclusion of the first section have a public statement allowed, so that you have the questions on your minds that you just discussed. That's a deal. But I also would like to suggest that we as a city, no matter what we do, are going to grow. And if we're not real careful about what we have, we're going to screw ourselves. And I think in this case, we're rushing to a dangerous precedent as far as financial. And that means it's over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Okay, Miss Peters will speak next, and then Miss Partey can take the seat.
Hi, I'm Paula Peters, a resident of Carson City. I'm a retired CPA, and I'm very fiscally conservative. If we need a new city hall, why did everyone on the board, except Supervisor White, vote for the city to give the land that they owned on Bud-Eye Way to a developer for free for affordable housing? I know the answer. You all wanted to be in the historic downtown area. I know you like the idea of being downtown, but have you asked the residents what they want? Have you hosted any public workshops for residents during non-work hours to share your vision for a new city hall? Have you considered that many people would rather conduct business with the city online and not deal with traffic and parking? A question for each of you. If we are revitalizing our downtown area, why do we want a city government building taking a prime real estate space and not paying taxes? I and many residents would rather have new private businesses moving into our downtown area. They would provide jobs like the city or state buildings would, but the private businesses would pay property and sales tax on goods and services purchased, which would help our economy. If you ask most residents, they will tell you they want better roads, not a new city hall. It is obvious that you, the board, intentionally decided not to spend money to repair roads or city buildings, so you would have these funds available for the proposed new city hall. Do you think it was honest to tell the residents there was no money to repair roads and buildings? The redevelopment funds will be used for the new city hall. The extraordinary fund is being used for the juvenile detention center now, but the extraordinary maintenance fund comes from the general funds, about $1 million in each budget year. So the general funds could have been used for local roads reserve. Indeed, when the redevelopment districts expire in 2031 and 2038, and the funds go back to generate funds, the funds can be used for neighborhood roads. Roads before City Hall is in the public interest. You are making a major decision about taking on debt to build a brand new city hall on leased land. The city will have interest and lease payments. Since you willingly gave away land for free that had been used for a new city hall, don't you think the residents should be able to vote on if they want to finance this or not? Myself and others do not think it is a reasonable plan, nor can we afford to finance it. The big question is, do you need a new city hall or do you want a new city hall? All of you were elected by residents to represent us. Do the right thing. Let the residents vote on whether or not they want to fund building a new city hall. Thank you.
Thank you. To take her seat will be Doreen Mack is up next, and so Ms. Owens.
My name is Sandra Owens. So I have spent hundreds of hours reviewing thousands of pages of documents and more than 10,000 emails produced through my Nevada Public Records request. After reviewing all of these records, I expected to find evidence that justified this project. Instead, I found the opposite. Today, you're being asked to authorize a $30 million project committing Carson City to decades of financial obligation. Yet I could not find an independent third-party space needs assessment. I could not find an independent financial analysis proving that this is the best value for our taxpayers. Instead, I found a process that appears to have reached its conclusion before completing its analysis. This is not due diligence. This is justification. The public record also shows this project moving forward long before the public was invited into the conversation. Developers, architects, attorneys, lenders, city staff were already working towards this project while the public was still trying to understand what was being proposed. The staff report tells us redevelopment funds will be used to finance part of this project. Redevelopment was created to eliminate blight, improve infrastructure, revitalize downtown, and encourage private investment. It was not created to finance a new city hall. This is no longer a city hall project. It permanently changes the heart of downtown by abandoning public streets to facilitate a much larger private development. That decision deserves far more scrutiny than it has received. Based on the public records I reviewed, the lease purchase structure appears to accomplish two things. It moves a $30 million public project forward without asking the voters for approval. It also appears the city believes the structure allows it to proceed without the traditional competitive public bidding process taxpayers expect. If either of those conclusions is wrong, please explain it today before you vote. What I cannot understand is why this board is willing to place Carson City in this position. I searched for the evidence, I could not find it. So I have to ask, how can you be so certain that this is the right decision when the independent work should support that it has never been done? Because once you sign this agreement, there's no reset button. The debt remains, the redevelopment funds are committed, the streets are altered, the taxpayers inherit every consequence. It's your responsibility. Your responsibility is not to the developer, it's not to the foundation, and it's not to the project that you've been working on for years. Your responsibility is to the residents of Carson City. We elected you to ask the hard questions, demand independent verification, protect public dollars, and leave this community better than you found it. So stop, get the answers, earn the public's trust. Carson City deserves nothing less, and we deserve to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sanada, you're next. Mr. Sudage, you'll be the empty spot. Ms.
Thank you.
Sanada?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mary Sanada. I started working in Carson City in 1979. Didn't get to move here till 2004. My career as a financial professional included being an auditor for the Legislative Counsel Bureau, being the chief accountant for the Nevada State Controller, and as a partner in a local CPA firm. So I'm pretty good at looking at numbers. I reviewed the financing stuff that was submitted in the stuff that was available to us, and I found it very confusing and convoluted. It would have been nice if I had had some of the stuff that was flashed before me on that screen to actually look at, but just seeing it in a moment, it's kind of hard to wrap my head around all of it. Basically, what I have to say is that if, and this is a big if this Carson City really needs this new city hall, and the parking lot behind the Nugget is the ideal location, why are we doing this with a lease purchase agreement? When you're talking about a lease purchase agreement for a capital asset, it is nothing but a financing vehicle. As a municipal city, you have a lot better financing options. When the state needed a new building, they built it on land they owned. They did the background stuff. They sold bonds. The unused bonds were invested, no loss to the city. It would be a lot less than doing this lease option thing. I know there was some kind of a chart up here which tried to show it wasn't, but I seriously question some of the assumptions in that. It appears that it was obviously skewed to show that this is a good idea. The first thing that popped out to me is the $7,000 that was going to be given to you by the Houghton May Adams Foundation. Really? No. You're going to pay it back in your lease payments. So you have the net cost of the building on the books, but all of those lease payments aren't in there. You're going to pay a lot more than the $55 million at the end of this. And I'm out of time, so that's all I can say. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Block, you'll be next, but you can just go to the edge, and when it's your turn, we'll do that, but you'll be next. Ms. Partee, your turn.
Thank you. So the supporting documents included a staff report from Glenn Martell dated July 16th with a historical review of events from 7/20/21 to March of 2026. But since we're expected, as a resident, expected to pay for this adventure, I only care about where we are now. The city staff is asking for approval to sign the check as the Houghton May Adams Foundation and Federal Credit Union, also parties who have a vested interest in this project. Do you have an impartial third-party evaluation of this project and its impact on the taxpayers? I'm sure we will hear from some realtors, and we already have, building trade organizations, Carson City Development Corporation Boards, which is a subsidiary of the Houghton May Adams Foundation in support of this project. All of these people need to disclose their connection with the project before submitting opinions on renovation costs versus new buildings, as they did at the March 19th Supervisors meeting. Are you not curious to know who they are? Yes, I am. Or do you know them already? We, the residents, do want to know them so we can assess their comments appropriately. I would also wonder why all the nonprofits in town are sending in emails for support of this project, some who were not so for it before. And as to the building being 50 years old, if a building is only useful for 50 years, is the next big great idea going to be tearing down all of our historical buildings to make room for new and revitalized areas? My house was built 50 years ago, and with maintenance and care will be useful for at least another 50 years. I feel this needs to go to a vote by the people, such as the prior project for that library 14 years ago. Same story, different building, same foundation and city center that was turned down back then. Thank you.
Okay, Doreen, you will be next, and then Miss Beasley can take the spot there. Doreen?
Can you hear me? Hello, I'm Doreen Mack, known as Lofty Expressions Interiors. I had two businesses downtown for 30 years on Telegraph Square. In 2009, I formed and was president of the Downtown 2020 group. In 2018, I was voted top 20 most powerful woman in Northern Nevada for all the work I did downtown, including removing the 4-lane freeway that went through the city and removing the downtown fence. My family goes back 3 generations. The intention was to create a business and people-friendly environment as it was when I was growing up here and to preserve our history. We have lost much of our history due to people who don't have a vision, and I am concerned about what we are leaving our next generation. I have restored many historic homes and served the Bliss Mansion saved the Bliss Mansion from being demolished in the 90s. We need to be cautious how we move forward and how to keep business and people-friendly downtown community. I am asking that we move cautiously forward and not jump into making hasty decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. For her seat, I have William Horn. You can hand them to me. I'll look at them to see if they can be utilized or not. Yeah. You could put them on the end. Mr. Sudich.
Hello, there we go. Good evening, Mayor Bagwell, Supervisors Giomi, Schutte, White, and Horton. For the record, my name is Jeff Sudich, CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance, representing 137 construction, development, and manufacturing businesses here in Carson City. I'm also a sixth-generation Nevadan, my kids are seventh, with family roots in the city going back to the mid-1800s. An ancestor of mine served as Nevada's second Secretary of State, conducting the business of the state from Carson City, likely steps from where we are sitting now. I say that because it shapes why I'm here today, not just as a trade association, but as someone who genuinely cares about what this city becomes. This board has worked toward this moment for years. What is in front of you today, item 24.A, is the result of that discipline, a well-structured public-private partnership with the Hop and May Adams Foundation. The project delivers 45,000 square feet of modern civic space financed through Redevelopment Authority proceeds at a fixed rate with a buyout provision. Annual debt service comes in at approximately $2.155 million, well within the city's historical range. This is the result of years of careful planning with professionals and community members working together to get it right. The cost of inaction is real. Carson City loses visitors, conventions, and economic activity to neighboring communities every day. Not because this community lacks quality, but because downtown lacks the civic gravity people expect from a state capital. This is a present, ongoing economic cost. A modern city hall anchors a downtown where residents gather, businesses thrive, and private investment follows. The master plan calls for this. The strategic plan calls for this. And frankly, this community has been waiting for this. For our members, this is operational. Builders, developers, and businesses working in Carson City today have to visit multiple locations to access city services. Consolidating into a single downtown facility means better coordination, a more predictable permitting environment, and more efficient processes for everyone doing business within the city. That benefits not just our industry, but every business and resident in Carson City. And the urgency is real. Continued delay risks increased construction and capital costs for a project Carson City needs. The vision, the property, the capital, and the leadership are all aligned right now. That combination is rare. My ancestor helped build Carson City into something worthy of a capital. I believe this board has the opportunity and the vision to do the same. On behalf of our members in Carson City, we urge you to approve item 24.A and move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Block, you are next, and then Mr. Grady, you can take one of the seats.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for...
Let's go to the good evening.
Good evening. I'm Judd Block for the record. I heard some really disturbing news today, and it's really upsetting because I found out they're not going to make yardsticks any longer. It's really a travesty. I want to reiterate, I want to say something that you guys are all very fortunate to be in here and be positive, be negative, be whatever you are, but you all have the opportunity to look down on me on a daily basis. I wish I could look down on somebody. So what I do for a living, I'm a registered agent. Business has been in Carson City since 1903. I go to the Secretary of State's office to file and retrieve documents daily. I get to go up their ramp that's warped, bent, waiting for the state to do something about that. I also go over to the building division or the business license division, and I get to go outside and go at the back of the brick and push a button and wait for somebody to come answer the door when they have time. Then once I go inside, I get to go up a lift. It takes about 3 minutes to get up on the lift. And then I do DBAs, I file business licenses, and everything else. one of the most exciting things about this project is maybe we'll fix some of the ADA inaccessible things. Came over here tonight, went through the Nugget parking lot, came over the old federal building. I can't get through there. The city's never had money to take down overlays after overlays after overlays. So this is another great opportunity to help people with disabilities get into buildings. You don't see many here. Why? Because they can't get here. It's a pain and it's not fun. Anyway, on that note, thank you guys for your time. I agree that you were elected to make the tough decisions for us. Whether I like it or not, you guys have been elected, so thank you for doing your job.
Thank you. Ms. Beasley, you will be next for comment, and then I have, I think it's Jeannie Yapel? A Yapel? Yapel, Y-A-P-L-E. Oh, she left? Okay, thank you. So then, Terry, you would be next in the seat. Ms. Beasley.
My name is Kathleen Beasley. I'm a resident of Carson City, and I have been a consistent opponent of building a new city hall that will saddle our 60,000 member community with a debt burden for the next 30 years that we cannot afford. I already submitted written testimony that argues the city hall is unnecessarily large. It is being financed in an unnecessarily expensive method, and there is little sign that the public, if given a chance to vote on this plan, would approve it. But here tonight, I'm going to focus on the issue of relying on experts instead of common sense. Mayor Bagwell was with the Department of Corrections back in 2008 and is quoted in a newspaper story about a big biomass plant that was supposed to supply electricity to the Northern Nevada Correctional Center. It cost $8.5 million in state and federal funds to build in 2007. Experts were very excited about this project because it not only would cover all the electricity needs of the prison, but would generate extra power to sell to NV Energy, and all while cutting down the pollution involved in clearing and burning hazardous undergrowth in Sierra forests. That plant shut down in 2010 without ever living up to the experts' expectations. It turned out that transporting the wood chips from the Sierras to the plant was too expensive. Plus, the plant was picky about the fuel that could be efficiently burned. So despite ongoing federal subsidies, it was never going to pencil out. Similarly, I know some of you are very excited about having a convention center, a hotel, and a big concrete plaza for events. You see this as a wonderful economic boon for a part of undeveloped downtown. And the path to get there, according to Steve Neighbors' experts, is for you to build a big city hall that will require an oversized garage that you will pay for half of, despite needing only a quarter of the spaces for employees in the new city hall. These experts assure you that these garages pay for themselves. They do not. There is a long track record of cities having to subsidize garages from general funds or installing parking meters on downtown streets. The experts tell you that a convention center will bring tourists, despite the fact that it lacks the airport that Reno has and the outdoor amenities that Tahoe has. Academic studies show that small convention centers are money losers and unlikely to be utilized enough to support paying off the parking garage. And no one has explained yet how a concrete plaza that will be unusable in snow or intense heat or high winds is going to generate anything to contribute to the parking revenue. The experts love this project. The beginning domino is the city hall. Once it is approved, the parking garage becomes a must-have. Once the parking garage is in place with bonds that must be repaid by the developer, if not by the city, the rest of the pieces become critical. I'm asking you to use common sense and stop trying to burden our very small community with a very large debt that stretches into the future. At the very least, put this project in front of the voters who will have to live with the impact long after all of you have left office. Thank you. Sorry I have to speak so fast to get it in
That's
3
okay.
minutes.
You're just following the rules. Okay. Next up, if they want, I don't know if Christy Locke wants now at the end of the meeting, because she wrote at the end of the meeting, final public comment, but just in case, Christy would be the next chair. She leave? No Christy? Okay, if no Christy, then the next chair, Rich McGregor. Okay, well then, no more chairs, okay? So next up is Mr. Horn, and you handed out material. Each of the board members has the material, and there is one on the back table.
One that wants it.
Thank you. There you go. Bring it real close.
Thank you. My name is Bill Horn, and I'm a citizen of Carson City, and I want to talk about this proposal. I'm very disappointed in staff because there is no substance to the proposal. There's no justification of needs, no contract. There is some sort of proposal that says, if you sign here, then we can go forward. There are no options. And so first, why the rush? Because working out the details make a contract. They're asking you to sign a proposal. And if you do sign that proposal, I believe that you will find, without details, that you have a problem. You're asking to sign something that is a proposal and not a contract. And those details matter. And therefore, you can't come back and then say, oh, we're going to decide. You guys are going to decide whether you're going to accept this proposal or not. And based upon your decision, you will make precedents and take away, you will assume the ability to do anything you want because you don't have to justify anything and you don't have the figures and you have no contracts. So willy-nilly, you will take the authority to do whatever you want by precedent. The documented scope of the assessment based on the stuff that you gave, costly, publicly presented lease costs begin around 28 to 30 million. Public funds are slated to prepare private lots and cover uncapped variable construction, and the core documentation, including third-party space needs assessments and comprehensive impact studies, remain absent from the public record. Your construction costs presented begin around 28 to 30 million, but additional project elements are there. Variable rate interest exposure, a joint venture parking lot, which you say you have cash for, but anyway, I'm not going to be able in the time to go through here. I don't think you want to make this precedent to make the decision without all the facts. And if you do, I think there's a problem. You should be looking at what precedent it sets. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Creedy, you're next.
Good evening. I am Michael Greedy, and I have lived in Carson City since late 1985. I am a retired state employee. At the PUC, I was an expert witness, on-site auditor, and opinion writer. Previously, I was an expert witness for 2 public utilities. I thank the board for scheduling public comment in the evening for item 24A, which apparently is a financing proposal for a new city hall. I examined the item 24A material and I had conversations with others. This new city hall proposal gets worse as it gets more examination. I agree with others about the lack of adequate information. This lease purchase proposal is essentially a scam to financially support the foundation. A lease is inherently more expensive than buying land and building the new city hall. Carson City can issue bonds and raise capital for less than the foundation. Carson City has eminent domain power for purchasing land. Signing a lease without a specific real property description is foolish. The proposed motion appears benign, but the motion is essentially an approval for an agreement with the foundation. The proposed motion with the phrase, quote, "to approve the lease purchase terms as presented," end quote, would likely ensure this dubious financing scheme would be enacted. I'm asking the board to vote no on the proposed motion because the supporting material is incomplete and because Carson City can build a new city hall for less. Like many others, I have additional questions. Has this proposal been subject to a major project review? Who are responsible for streets, sidewalks, sewer, and water changes? I have seen two somewhat similar plot sketches, including one indicating street abandonments. This motion is a single puzzle piece in a larger, ill-defined puzzle, possibly the, quote, Carson City Town Square. There is not sufficient evidence to proceed as presented. It's not clear if this proposed lease purchase agreement includes the garage, as we've learned today. The board should hire a third party to examine all of the material and bring a comprehensive full foundation project description with possible financing options. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, it looks like you're last, Terry. Oh, I'll ask for other, you didn't sign in on here, that's okay. That's okay. Then please come up. If you didn't sign in, there's an empty chair, come on up. Ms. Preston.
Good evening. I'm Terry Green Preston, and as you're aware, I represent a property at 1340 South Curry, which is for sale or lease. However, I'm an entrepreneur who throughout the years has owned 16 international and domestic companies providing products, services, and manufacturing. Raised in Carson City by my single dad, the Nuggets' former general manager and general contractor who completed every expansion, the last going vertical in the 1980s with an 8,600 square foot convention center. I grew up on a Keno stool. Two of my mentors were Hop and Howard Adams. They taught me a vital lesson. They taught me I am not the smartest person in the room. The sound business decisions require independent, arm's length experts. You only know what you know. For one company, I did not consider Hop and Howard's advice. We failed spectacularly because my partners and I knew it all. We didn't seek advice from people who knew what they were doing. I trusted my peers, my family, the bank, and I didn't question the information provided. I let egos get in the way. I thought I knew it all. Obviously not. That mistake nearly wiped out my family, the families of 160 employees, and almost destroyed everything I had built over decades. Has this city retained an unaffiliated professional advisors to review this project? How much economic benefit? Has a need truly been defined? Have professionals been hired to weigh economic feasibility against wants? If not, you should consider it. Relying on internal staff, selective data, and nebulous estimates is not the best option. While the lease purchase option allows you to avoid a public vote, competitive bids, oversight, and weighing alternatives, is it the best use of the taxpayers' money? Basing this decision on an unverified assumptions exposes the city and its taxpayers to significant liability and risk, making the city vulnerable to an unknown or undetermined cost. This could include property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, management, HOA. The list goes on. What hidden fees will be added to the plaza and parking garage rents? What happens when the costs balloon or revenues fall short? While the base rent has been addressed, the many costs have not and remain unaccounted for. Justifying the rent is one thing, but can the taxpayers afford operating, maintenance, and pass-through costs over 30 years? The city has always had the advantage of owning its own space, avoiding costs owners pass on to the tenant. The city does not pay property taxes on property it owns, but it will pay property tax on property it doesn't. Madam Mayor, Supervisors, you have a fiduciary duty to our taxpayers, not to the developer. We request that you educate yourselves, hire professionals at arm's length, and learn what you don't know.
Thank you. Mr. Zinsky, you're.
Good evening. My name is Joy Trushinsky for the record. I am a Carson City resident, and I love this town. I believe this project needs to be put on the ballot. Far too few are making this decision in leasing land and building a new large city hall for $30 million. I recommend town hall meetings on this matter so that the people can have a chance to speak. I spoke to a lot of people at my church this last Sunday about this meeting, and they said they didn't know anything about it, but they asked me to tell you that they want it, put it on the ballot. So that's what I'm saying today, put it on the ballot, or at least have town hall meetings. Now, my question is, are you going to raise our taxes for this huge project? You say not today, but what about tomorrow? You have yet to pave all the roads that need paving. This project has supporters, and I looked at this, and many of them are builders, architects, the Nevada Builders Alliance, and other similar groups. But the citizens that live here and work here, you know, they don't know much about this, and that's why they should be told. This project projects, or the supporters project $700 million in economic impact, approximately 1,500 new jobs, and millions in annual tax revenue. You have not explained how this will happen. It seems to me this is not at all predictable. I see new taxes on the horizon in a time of uncertainty, especially if the Democrats regain the majority in the House in DC. I believe that the hard-working people in Carson City will end up with little to say in this matter and have to end up paying more taxes. I oppose this project and all the rapid building going on in this town. The congestion is increasing. Carson City is a historic town. It always has been, and I want it to remain so. So please put this to the vote of the people, or let us have some town hall meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Mihara?
Good evening, Mayor and Supervisors. My name is Maita Sanchez. I am a Carson City resident, small business owner, candidate for Ward 3 Board of Supervisor. I wanted to begin by acknowledging that our community is growing. The courthouse does require expansion. Departments are operating from multiple locations. As we heard from the other gentleman, there are much needed ADA updates to our facilities to make sure that places are accessible. My concern tonight is not whether we need to invest our community. My concern tonight is whether the public has been given enough information to determine that this investment is the best one. Public-private partnerships can be incredibly successful. They can leverage private expertise, accelerate needed projects, create public benefit, but they also are among the most complex financial arrangements that governments can undertake. The state of Nevada does not have a framework for public-private partnerships outside of the Nevada Department of Transportation. So success really depends on transparency, independent analysis, and public trust. I do have to give credit to others who have made statements along those lines here today. At this point, I believe the concern is that we just have not seen enough information to answer some very concerning questions. We do need to consider an independent value for money analysis, comparing the proposal to other alternatives. I did see the cost comparison that was very helpful, but the methodology behind how that was calculated, I think would be very beneficial to be released to the public so that people can take a look at how that analysis was done and where those assumptions lie, right? A life cycle cost comparison between this lease purchase structure and traditional municipal financing. That was something that another constituent talked about. You know, what does traditional financing look like? An independent assessment demonstration that this proposal really delivers the greatest public value. It's not simply a workable financing structure that works for us right now. Also, again, how the city has evaluated that long-term fiscal impact once redevelopment revenue expires and future general fund dollars assume a greater share of the obligation. Are we going to be here at that point when that happens? And because this project is part of the broader public-private partnership, how the city really has evaluated both the public benefits and the private benefits to ensure the public is receiving fair value for its investment. If this truly is the best project, I would encourage that we should be able to release that information, and that it should be able to withstand greater transparency, independent review, and broader public engagement before Carson City commits to decades of financial obligations. I would encourage the board to slow the process long enough for us to be able to provide that information and have a complete independent financial analysis and comparison of the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else, just in case we missed? Well, I like that.
Well, I'm objecting right now. You're allowed to put all your information on the viewing. Now, in the past, I've done, they've allowed it, but you don't allow the public to do it. So,
Is it possible to display? We do those things when they come in advance so that it can be, no, we just literally did it with this individual because he brought the copies. Oh, well. Okay, let's just not with. I'm sorry, I don't even know if there's, I don't think you brought a virus on that, but we vet those before, so sorry. And you didn't bring a printout of what you're, oh, because we can make a copy and do that. Like I said, we just did that for the other gentleman too. Mhm. Do you guys want, we're at the end. Keep going? Okay. Keep going. Did you need the handout before you start your testimony? Okay. They're together. Is this it? Is there anyone else? Oh, John, did you want to make comment? We're waiting for a copy, so they'll go. I'll go. Okay.
For the record, my name is John Rogers. I am a citizen of Carson City. I've lived here since 1984. I'm not a realtor and I'm not a developer, but I am an entrepreneur. I have started several businesses. I'm involved in several local nonprofits. And as part of my, as a recent very happy retiree, I am involved in a lot of community building activities in our community. And so as part of that, I go downtown almost every day. Where do I go downtown? I go to buildings that had been redeveloped and rebuilt by the Hop and May Adams Foundation. And so in my experience as an entrepreneur, I've learned over the years that my best move, if I don't want to do everything, is to look for the people who are doing the things and then support them. And so when I look at our downtown corridor, everything that is attracting people and is delivering economic benefit and is popular by those standards has been built or redeveloped by the Hop and May Adams Foundation. So and then I look at this dais and I see people who I can call on the phone and they answer the phone. They're well informed. They look at information that's presented to them. And so what I'm seeing is a project that is supported by a lot of people who do a lot of work that benefits the city of Carson City. And because of that, I am thrilled to say that I support those people that are doing the work, and I'm happy to get out of their way and let them do the work that I think that they're fully capable of.
Thank you. We'll give just a moment. We have to put one on the back. We can't have any material without public access, so just give us just a moment, and then you can begin. Okay. State your names for the record and go.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Leck-Jensick, and I'm a resident of Carson City, and I'm here today to oppose the new City Hall project. This analysis was prepared by my dad, Daniel Leck, a 40-year resident of Carson City with 50 years of appraisal experience. First, a simple feasibility analysis. The construction loan for the proposed project is $28 million. Applying the bank's loan-to-value ratio of 80%, the indicated overall property value is $35 million. This value serves as the basis for the following analysis. To set the foundation of the analysis, market indicators of 7 larger office sales in Carson City over the past 3 years are analyzed. Based on a total property value of $35 million, the price per square foot indicator equates to $778 a square foot. The Carson City sales chart price per square foot range is $43 to $213 a square foot, which indicates the City Hall project is more than 3 times the unit price of the highest office sale. The summarized office sales support a capitalization rate of 7%, which results in a net annual income of $2.45 million. Converting the net annual income into a monthly rental rate, the City Hall project indicates a rent of $4.53 per square foot. Office Sales 7 is the best comparable. This is a 1-story office property that is leased by a state agency. Its rental rate is $1.90 a square foot a month, based on a building area of 44,456 square feet. This lease requires the property owner to pay all property expenses. The adjusted triple net equivalent rate of $1 would be $1.27 a square foot a month. Considering the new City Hall building will be newly constructed, a higher rent of $1.50 a square foot a month is considered reasonable. Given a new City Hall rent of $4.53 a square foot a month and a base market rent of $1.50 a square foot a month, the City Hall lease will be paying 3 times market rent. Also, the new City Hall building's gross area, less its net usable area, reflects a substandard efficiency of some 72%, which does not justify building justify a building unit price of $778 a square foot. Given the above analysis, the cost per square foot rate of the City Hall property is 3.5 times greater than the unit price of the highest priced office sale, and its rental rate is some 3 times greater than market rents in the community. As currently presented, this project is clearly not feasible. Second, parking. What is most frustrating is nowhere in the staff report does the city manager discuss the parking facilities. There is no discussion on who will pay for parking spaces or if they are included in the value of the $35 million office building. How can you vote on this project without informing the public as to the lack of planning of the parking situation? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maureen Lack, and I'll be continuing the analysis prepared by my husband, Daniel. Third, the location of the City Hall. The existing City Hall occupies a prominent signalized intersection in downtown Carson, providing a strong civic presence. In contrast, the proposed site for the new City Hall is located on a minor local street, a placement that does not align with the city manager's assertion that the facility is intended to serve as a cornerstone of downtown revitalization. A cornerstone building typically commands a high, visible, and symbolically significant location. Its siting should reflect that level of prominence. Fourth, land area cost. The agenda states the building site will be 25,600 square feet and will be located in downtown Carson City, and that the amount for the property will not exceed $30 million. The agenda language does not make clear whether the $30 million represents a straightforward purchase option price or the total cost of a lease purchase financing structure. The specific purchase option price should be clearly spelled out and more transparent. Furthermore, prior to approving this plan, an appraisal should be prepared. Fifth, recommendations for an alternative property. The first two sales represent the most recent large transactions in Carson City and clearly demonstrate the market pressures now affecting the local office sector, which is largely attributable to the 130,000 square foot state office building under construction on the Children's Home site. The scale and timing of this state facility are exerting negative measurable influence on office demand, pricing, and absorption. I strongly recommend that the board reconsider requiring 2 of the 4 Capitol Plaza office buildings. This property offers the most practical and cost-effective solution for meeting the community's City Hall needs. The Plaza site is uniquely positioned with an existing civic and community hub. Directly across the street is the city's convention center, the aquatic center, Mills Park, and Marv Texera Pavilion. This concentration of facilities significantly enhances the suitability of the Capitol Plaza buildings as a consolidated municipal complex. The Capitol Plaza complex consists of 4 two-story buildings, each containing 28,000 square feet. This complex sold for $43 a square foot in 2025. If the city were able to acquire 2 of these buildings at a price of $75 a square foot, the total cost would be some $4,200,000. The 45,000 square foot buildings could be improved at an estimated cost of $150 a square foot, resulting in a renovation cost of roughly $6,750,000. An additional $500,000 would be sufficient to gut the remaining square foot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you gonna?
You need the last sentence in that paragraph.
Summarized with.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And you keep it fairly close to your mouth.
Okay. I'll conclude what Maureen was talking about at the Capitol Plaza. It's probably one of the best opportunities the city has for the costs that I believe they can purchase a property and redevelop it. And by and large, it would cost most likely less than 50% of what the city's going to spend. Coming here tonight and listening to the city's presentation, the one thing I never heard, I heard the shell game with all the finances, where we're going to get it, where we're going to put it, etc. Nobody told the people and taxpayers of Carson City how much this building is going to cost. And I'm sorry the public could not see the exhibit that I had. On that exhibit, it shows that in order for the Adams Trust to build that building, they have to get a loan. That loan is based on an 80% loan to value. Dividing 80% into 28,000, that means the value of that property has to be $35 million. Nobody talks about $35 million. Then in your funding revenue sheet, it shows on there the cost to the city to build the garage is $8 million. So now the city is into this project $8 million or $43 million. That's $955 a square foot. They build hospitals cheaper. This is ridiculous. And there's been no transparency from the city. We don't talk about the garage, but we'll talk about the structure. Or we'll talk about the garage, but we won't talk about structure. The disappointment, and I'll leave you with this. I would urge you, the members, to take a deliberate step back and ask yourselves, if you were personally responsible for committing $43 million of your own capital, would you invest in a project that is unfeasible when there are variable alternative options that would fulfill the exact same need? Thank you.
Okay. Do I have anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to close the public comment period on that, bring it back up here to see if we have any further questions. I always like to, as I said, I love listening to all the public comment, pro, con, doesn't matter, and try to answer or have staff answer any outstanding questions they potentially brought up. So first thing, it was the last speakers dealt with costs and really were questioning the price per square foot. We recently built a fire station, and if I recall, I think each and every one of us had a kind of a heart attack on the price per square foot. Does anybody remember what that actual cost was on the fire station? It wasn't $43. Was it 900 and something? Yeah, closer to the 1,000. So it's a bunch of empty bay. So that really shocked me. But anyway, the fire station cost a lot more than what this represents. I really appreciate, I think, a comment that the state building their new facilities is going to cause some vacancies in other buildings. I think that's probably pretty true, that you'll see a switch in places that had long-term leases for a very long time that the state occupied. And now the state in a year, what is it, March or something? I think it's March that they said they'd be starting their phasing out of other properties. But one of our issues really starts with the timing of our courthouse needs, the movement of the clerk. It's not going to be something that we're delaying for years to get the potential deal from the state exiting other locations. Yes, this board does believe or has stated on the record for many years that it belongs in the downtown. I understand some of you don't think it does or don't care that it's in the downtown. You would be okay with going to some of these more remote locations to do that. And I understand I'm just saying I understand that. I think, I won't speak for anyone else, I'll just speak for myself. I believe this project will definitely be transformative to this area. Right now, you have the Nugget with the back side of it with lots, right? Empty lots that aren't even full of cars being parked at them. There's no vibrancy there. I believe this will bring that. There's a cost to it. You're right to say we should analyze all of it. You guys, you're right. I'm not saying that you aren't. I wish that, and I get it, but we have been looking for years. We tried to buy the Bank of America building to do the very thing to move the clerk. So it isn't that this board is not exercising options and looking at things. Years ago, we thought about moving the clerk, and Aubrey, the clerk, and I went to one of Terry's, to your building, and we looked just to move the clerk when she had a different ratio of owners in there or whatever, leases. So we've been looking for years, so I don't want you to think we're not. And so it's disappointing to me when I'm constantly hearing your board's not doing due diligence, you're not working hard. We are. The staff is working hard. What we have now is an individual that has a fiduciary responsibility to a trust. And I know I've heard people say, oh, he lives in Idaho, he's going to take his money to Idaho. That's impossible. He has a trust that says it's going to benefit Carson City. He has other things within that trust that he can do. There's a list within it that he was given by the Hop and May Adams Foundation. And so it's going to stay in this area one way or another. I think I heard somebody ask, have we vetted him? I also heard someone else testify, I think it was John, that where does he go? He goes to offices or places that the Hop and May Foundation has completed. 308 North Curry, the Adams Hub. He took over Northgate from us, remodeled the whole thing so that all of them, our nonprofits, had a place where they could be without paying rents or paying very low dollar a years. And so I think he has, or should, tell all of us that he's interested in the well-being of Carson City. And so we've got 3 projects that he's done. So I think that was a vetting question. There was a question on why lease versus purchase, and somehow maybe we're not communicating something right, but we will be purchasing the property. We will own it. You, the taxpayer, will have an asset. We are not doing a 30-year lease. That is by no means our plan at all. Sometimes things are facilitated by time. And so you might do a gap. I think Mary talked about different options for gaps and things that you might do. That's correct. So you do a lease purchase, that gives you a gap while it's being constructed. Normally, you have to do a construction loan. The city will not be doing the construction loan. Hop and May Adams will. And you use the underlying lease agreement to support the construction loan. So I think you all have a flavor of accuracy in your discussions, but I want to assure you, we look at all of this, every single bit of it. Charrettes, I heard that one. Will there or will there not be charrettes on the design for the plaza? That is up to the owner of the plaza, but again, we are recommending that. So I think that's all Mr. Martell was trying to say. We can't control it because it's not ours, but he has historically done charrettes. If you all can remember, maybe you don't, 308 North Curry, Mr. Neighbors put up 3 designs and had us all go and put stickies on them to vote for which design you thought was the best. And what did he build at 308 North Curry? The one with the most sticky notes. So he did indeed do charrettes. So I have faith that he said he'd do it, he will. That's all I can rely upon is what he's done in the past to inform whether I think he will. We're just trying to be honest and say we can't promise it. It's not ours, but history tells me that he will. The parking lot discussion, I already indicated to all of you my same disappointment that I don't have lease terms and things of that nature to discuss today. But I'll be looking to update the motion to discuss some of those factors because I agree with you. What was the other one? Let's see. I'm sorry. I tried as fast as I could to write salient points on the bottom of the paper. Ormsby House. I am perplexed that you're suggesting we buy the Ormsby House that is 200,000 square feet. The price just to buy the shell, because there isn't anything in it, is $16 million, right? So there is no way, if you're upset over 35 parking garage, and if you're already upset at that price and think you can't afford it, there's no way unless I had willing partners. The same type of a deal that we're talking about here. If we had some people that were willing to come in and say, I'm going to take floor, whatever, 4 through 10, and you guys can have the bottom floors. I will tell you that I've had numerous meetings trying everything I could to find somebody to help us with the Ormsby House. I would dearly love that to be the answer, right? So I want to say I agree with you. I would love the Ormsby House to be an option to be able to fulfill the rest of those corners and to have something that's been vacant for 25 years. This isn't going to be the answer. It's just not, it's not the answer for this project. I think that's what I had, but maybe somebody else. Supervisor Giomi.
Glenn, I think one of the things that we heard was that this is sparse on details, and clearly it is sparse on details because it's not an agreement.
Right.
The term sheet is a term sheet that we're broadly accepting the terms of, not to use the word term too many times in a sentence. But we're really not committed to anything until we sign a development agreement with the details that we're talking about that we all know that we need to be able to make an fully informed decision. Is that a fair statement? Or
absolutely
clarify?
a fair statement, Supervisor Giomi. I think, again, as I said in my presentation, you know, when you authorized us back in March to go do some due diligence, it was we reached this point where I did not want to continue to spend your team's time and money, and I did not want to continue to have Hoppa May Adams expend time and money. I thought that this was a good point in time to come back to this board and say, okay, funding is available. Okay, here's the interest rate. Okay, the 45,000 square feet works. We have a willing partner. We can bundle the land and the building. We addressed in a much more positive fashion the off-ramp concerns that this board expressed. It was just the right time to come back and say, are we going the right direction? And if we are, great, let's move on. If there's tweaks to that, fantastic, let's get the tweaks and move on. I think as was expressed regarding the parking garage is perfectly valid. We have reached out to some other entities that are engaged. We've, you know, done some due diligence on cost and structure, but that to us is unique. It will take us a little more time. I think it's perfectly valid to say, hey, we want to move forward with this project. We see some questions. Let's move forward. And this team will bring you back in 2 or 3 months a draft of an agreement for you to take another shot at, get some feedback. A couple months after that, we'll bring it back. And when you approve that agreement, that is when you become tied to the project. That is when we can actually move forward.
One of the other comments I think we heard, and we know this as board members, but I think it's worth mentioning that when we engage in something like this, we do have third-party people who are looking at it, and 2 of them are here tonight. I just want you to maybe address that there is, because we are bonding, we are required by law to go before the Debt Management Commission, which is a public body. We are required to have bond counsel, who's here right now, sans puka shells. It's an inside joke. Can you talk about that a little bit, the independent component?
Absolutely. And one thing on the legal side as well, when we got the direction to do due diligence, the DA's office said, hey, we also need some outside consulting, right? So we have an outside attorney firm to help us get through the legal process, help us structure these agreements correctly that fit all the applicable regulations and laws. You have, as you mentioned in the room tonight, your bond counsel and your legal bond counsel, as I call them, Ryan and John, thank you. And they have been in meetings with us, and they've asked a lot of good questions as to the structure, the intent. They've reviewed all the documents. Not only is this process legal, but the money makes sense, the bonding makes sense, the process is there. So from an outside point of view, I do believe we are well represented. And I will also say again that your team, Team Carson, has presented this. The team that presented tonight, the attorney's team so far, the DA's team has not had an opportunity to speak. They've not needed to, but your whole team has looked at this, and I would put that up against and with any outside counsel.
Yeah, I think the independent component is the fact that Ryan and John will be reviewing that, and we'll have to, I mean, they're as independent as you can get. They're not city employees, and their role is to vet the legalities and of a process.
Correct, and as the questions already expressed here tonight are questions that outside team had specifically. Those two gentlemen were on a couple of phone calls with us, and we discussed the exact same thing on the parking garage. What does the structure look like? How is the city protected? How are those parking spots in perpetuity, permanent, whatever those words are, how are they attached to the city hall so that we don't end up with a dual-lane project that doesn't function either individual, doesn't function as independent parts. So we are all on the same page this evening, Supervisor, that we are looking out in the best interest of Carson City. We want to make sure that it works best, again, not only for today, but for the foreseeable future, which, in 50, 60, 70 years, just like the building we're in today.
The last comment I'll make is a comment that there are redevelopment funds being used for this. We've talked about that. I don't know that we've talked enough about the fact that the redevelopment funds are property taxes that are only paid by the people within that redevelopment district. Those people in that district have weighed in on this, and it is, as you mentioned, the direct definition of the redevelopment district is to redevelop in that district. And I don't know that we've really sort of covered that enough. Yes, there is general fund commitment on the horizon. I agree with that. But a good portion of it is redevelopment funds, and the people in that redevelopment district have often talked about the need to revitalize that area quite frequently. And the last comment I'll make, I might have said that comment was the last comment, but this is really the last comment until I make another comment. I think that we should have done a better job talking about this over time. I will say that there has been discussions about this over years. The unfortunate part about that is that it's often discussed as part of other work we are doing. And so it doesn't, from that regard, it doesn't stand out as a separate sort of event, as its own thing. When in reality, we have discussed it going back to pre-21, or when we had discussions in our strategic goal setting session about city halls, about consolidating, about being in the downtown. These are all things that we've talked about for years. So I understand the frustration that that this wasn't picked up and put out. But it doesn't mean, as the mayor said, that there haven't been thoughts, that there haven't been discussions, both publicly and obviously, in the background with people who approach us. I've had this discussion with some people in the room before. We are answerable to the citizens, but we are answerable to all of the citizens. Yes, there are people in here who don't like this, but there were people in here and people who have called and contacted us who do like this. Not one person's opinion is valued over another person's opinion. In the totality of circumstances, our obligation is to look at all of the information that we receive and to make the best decision on behalf of the people we're here to represent. And I'm not shirking that responsibility, and I don't think any of us are. I think I would appreciate some acknowledgement that there are diverse points of view about this. And the level of passion that someone has doesn't diminish the points of view of others. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And I'll just clarify quickly. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. The fire station was $850. I knew it was a lot, but anyway, does somebody else want to go next? Supervisor Schutte?
There were a couple, listening to the comments and I really appreciate people coming out and sharing your concerns. It catches me off guard every time I hear it, though, when people say this has been rushed. Even in the agenda item in the staff report, it listed the timelines. And I went through and re-listened to the September 1st, 2022 meeting several times. And when folks were saying there aren't space needs, and that meeting went into great detail about the space needs, not only for a judge, but also for the DA's office and for the clerk's office with the judges, for clerk recorder, all of it. And it finding room for that, we spent a lot of time looking at potentially building onto the court, adding an addition, and it was this conversation, the back to the front, and then maybe we could have the first floor go further to accommodate the needed 9,000 square feet just for the court. And that didn't address the other needs. The meeting from March 19th, I went back and listened to that 4 times. I kid you not. And I was here just listening to the financing and listening to the why and listening to the presentation, talking about the strategic plan, talking about the redevelopment funds and the other extraordinary maintenance funds. This information has been available. There have been people who've asked me questions and I've answered, and they don't believe my answer. And so I've said, please watch those meetings, and then we can have a conversation based on the same information. And well, I don't want to. That's why I'm talking to you. And one person, I said, well, but you're not believing what I say. So please watch the meeting, and then we can have the conversation. And so these meetings are important because they are on the record, and the questions are being asked. And we do listen. And, I've been scribbling this whole meeting, my notes. There is a need. The downtown feel, again, I'm a Carson resident. I'm a taxpayer. I was born and raised here. The downtown feel, at the moment, it's parking lots. The historical feel, our history is government. To embrace the roundhouse and the arches, that acknowledges the history of this community, and it also meets the future needs of this community. So I just want folks to understand this is a tough decision, but really we are keeping in mind the conversation of the last years as we move forward on how to proceed.
Supervisor Horton.
Thank you. Stacy, thanks for addressing the third party thing. That was one of my questions, so you covered that well, and Mayor, thank you for covering the other two. That's great. Glenn, I have a little bit of a concern, a little heartburn, actually. Not with this, but with roads. Let's talk about that. A couple people mentioned that, you know, we needed to spend that money on roads. We needed to fix these roads. And everybody seems to have forgotten. We recently discussed that. We turned the V&T tax toward roads, and we've added some money to that program. I am really passionate about repairing the local roads in the city. I've gone to the city manager and stomped my feet. And in turn, he came back and he said, here's what we're going to do. And I know the rest of the board members feel the same way. We want those things taken care of, and there's a plan afoot in order to do that. And I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that we have just forgotten about the roads. We have not. And we do have a plan, and we're going to move it forward. If you have anything to add, Glenn, that's fine. Otherwise,
I appreciate that, Supervisor Horton. And yeah, just for memory, yes, we converted the V&T tax into the Highway and Infrastructure Fund. And again, the Highway and Infrastructure Fund title is based on NRS. It does not deter or diminish anything that the board committed to local roads in the program. So when you actually read the charter, if you will, it is committed to local roads. And this board did commit to approximately $15 million over the next 5 years. This immediate year is funded at 3.1, as is next year. That, you know, rub that crystal ball 2 years out. After that, obviously we can't predict the future, but this board has committed to $3 million roughly per year over the next 5 years as we go through one round of our road improvement districts in the city.
Thank you. Supervisor White?
Thank you. It might be a surprise to some of you that I do have a few things to say, and as per usual, I have written them down so that I can stay on track. And I do want to apologize to the mayor when I suggested that people fill the seats. I did not imagine I would create a stampede. I thought we were going to do exactly the way she managed it after we got the dust settled down. So I apologize for that. That is not what I had in mind.
It just beat me by a second to manage. You're fine.
Okay. I have long been a proponent of consolidating the city services. I have long been a proponent of keeping the city hall downtown. But I think we have gone down the wrong path on this particular project, primarily on the financing side. I have to say that I am somewhat embarrassed to admit that in all the years I have been in this room and working with this city, I have not read the founding documents of the redevelopment areas until this project emerged. In fact, I was reading these documents until about midnight last night, trying to make sure that my thoughts actually coincide with what I believe those documents say. That said, I make no apologies for the late-breaking information that you are about to hear. In regards to redevelopment area number 1, the purpose and objectives of redevelopment area number 1 is to address blight. This plan provides a process whereby blight can be eliminated. Section 101 defines blight. There are 10 elements of blight in this plan. I cannot fit the proposed properties and this plan into the definition of blight as it is defined in redevelopment area 1. Except for proposed public works projects, this plan does not present a specific plan or establish specific projects not found in Exhibit 7. Exhibit 7 calls out an extensive list of intended utility and street projects. There is no mention of constructing any buildings. Activities are defined in Section 201. In part, it says managing and implementing the provisions of the redevelopment plan consistent with the purpose and objectives of the plan. Redevelopment Area 1 objectives are defined in Section 300. There are 24 objectives. I can only sort of apply 2 of those objectives to the proposed properties. The City Hall plan does not comfortably fit the purpose and objectives of redevelopment plan number 1. The purpose and intent of Area 2 is to energize portions of Carson Street by creating an implementation tool to address blighted characteristics of the redevelopment area. 7 strategies are in place. 6 of those strategies are specific to auto dealers. 7 proposed actions are in place. 6 of those actions are specific to supporting auto dealers. It is obvious that the new City Hall was not contemplated, and a new City Hall will not support auto dealers. The financing methods authorized in Redevelopment Area 2 state the Redevelopment Authority is authorized to finance projects within Project Area 1. It is obvious that financing a project in Redevelopment Area 1 is not contemplated. The City Hall plan does not comfortably fit the purpose and intent of Redevelopment Area 2. It was incredibly painful to learn from council that the documents previous Board of Supervisors used to tell the public how we would spend the public's money are meaningless. We are not legally bound to those documents. It is, however, obvious past boards intended to restrict the activities of both of these redevelopment areas and not take full advantage of the benefits offered by NRS. Redevelopment Area Plan 2, Section 5, authorized and required actions. I refer you to paragraph O. The city shall, and I find no wiggle room in that word. The city shall perform the administration and enforcement of this plan. If we want to finance this city hall with redevelopment area funds, we need to amend the 2 not so governing documents I have referenced. But today, it is imperative that we honor the word of our predecessors and gain the trust of our constituents. So what brings us here today? Primarily, the insistence that the clerk recorder must be moved out of the courthouse. This is not the place to relitigate that decision. But expanding the footprint of the courthouse could have saved this city $10 to $15 million. On the financing, to begin with, language throughout the creating documents of both redevelopment areas indicate a strong desire to operate each redevelopment area as an independent entity without commingling funds. Redevelopment Area 1, Section 411.c. The Redevelopment Authority may, with consent of the Board of Supervisors, pay all or part of the value of the land for and the cost of the construction of any building, if the Board of Supervisors determines the building is a benefit to the redevelopment area or immediate neighborhood. In this case, I do not see the construction of a government building eliminating blight when there is none in the immediate neighborhood. Section 411.C, paragraph 2. No other means of financing these buildings, facilities, structures, or other improvements are available. There are certainly other funding mechanisms available. Section 602.06. The authority shall not establish or incur loans, advances, or indebtedness to finance in whole or in part the project beyond 25 years from the adoption of the plan. We're well beyond 25 years of redevelopment area 1. And that brings us to NRS 279.619. In part, it says, no indebtedness may be incurred beyond 20 years after the date on which the redevelopment plan is adopted, except that an agency may enter into leases or incur indebtedness at any time if the leases are terminated and the indebtedness is fully paid no later than the termination of the redevelopment plan. As was testified here tonight, the debt shifts. It is not fully repaid at the termination of the redevelopment authorities. And by the way, we've been told for years there was no more money for street maintenance. Lo and behold, these redevelopment funds can be used for street maintenance. And I would ask you to note that the primary function of redevelopment area 1 was to fix roads that we have not fixed.
Miss Russell. Sorry to Benaboo. Let me get this right. Don't get married on us and change names. You know people for years. You're stuck with their name.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you and the team already reviewed the redevelopment to determine that the funding sources recommended here are eligible?
I believe we have. We can look into it again for Mr. White or Supervisor White. We have over the years commingled the two districts. Every budget cycle, I bring before you the fact that we spend a little bit more here and a little bit more there. In District 2, we spent a lot of money with the car dealerships early on. And I can go back and look at the numbers again, but this would offset that. So we would spend more money in the downtown and come out more equal than it has been in the past.
So let me be clear. I'm not saying the commingling is necessarily legally inappropriate. I'm just saying that's not what I read in the founding documents that we should be doing. And as I said, council very painfully informed me, we're not legally bound to do what's in those resolutions.
Excuse me. Mr. Yu, is there do you have something or I can maybe handle it within a motion issue, but do you want to opine a little? Okay, Mr. Yu.
Yeah, I'm happy to just kind of clarify for the record without getting too much into the weeds here that with respect to resolutions, in general, as I've explained before, there are different types of resolutions, and depending on the type of resolution we're talking about, the question that's really posed is, what's the enforcing mechanism behind that, right? I mean, the enforcing mechanism for a resolution, depending again on the nature and the contents of that resolution, is really going to be left up to the board that adopts it. That's not with respect to all resolutions. As I've explained before at various times, a resolution, and actually, in fact, what we're talking about right now is not a resolution. This is an ordinance. So this was an ordinance that was adopted however many years ago with respect to the establishment of RDA 1. This is not a resolution. It's an uncodified, so it's not in CCMC, but it went through the ordinance adoption process. So those are two distinct things that we're talking about. So that's one thing I want to make clear. So with an ordinance, especially one that's adopting the the redevelopment area 1, that's pursuant to very specific statutory requirements in NRS Chapter 279. So when it comes to, for example, material deviations from that, or if this board ever thought there was a good idea to amend it, there are certain statutory steps to that as well. That is concurrent and consistent with, amendments to other ordinances. So it's not that this board can simply disregard any provision of an ordinance that's been established. But I do want to, just try to clearly articulate on the record that there is a difference between these two different types of documents we're talking about. One being a resolution, one being an ordinance, different enforcement mechanisms, different nature and contents of the document that we're talking about. And with respect in particularity to this RDA 1 ordinance, there would be very specific statutory steps that would have to be taken for material deviations. But insofar as we're talking about the proper usage and allocation of those funds, I have to defer to the expertise of finance, and I can't weigh in on that.
Thank you. Okay. So do we have any, I think we can handle that within the motion on an ad for the redevelopment funding. I think I can do that too. If you want me to try a motion.
No, that's
You're-
fine. I'm just looking at the form, the redevelopment plan.
Mhm.
And a redevelopment area need not be restricted to buildings, improvements, or lands which are detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, but may consist of an area in which such conditions predominate and injuriously affect the entire area. A redevelopment area may also include, in addition to blighted areas, lands, buildings, or improvements which are not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, but whose inclusion is found necessary for the effective redevelopment of an area for which they are a part. And then it goes on, even more information.
Do you want me to try a motion? And I'll try and actually cover that piece too. I move to approve the lease purchase terms as presented and direct the city manager to continue with all preparatory tasks to complete a draft lease purchase agreement for the new city hall and any other necessary or desirable documents, including a separate agreement for the required parking accommodations for City Hall. I further direct that the details of the proposed parking garage, including its financing, ownership, operations, maintenance responsibilities, public access, and the material terms proposed for any related development agreement be brought before this board for review and discussion at least 2 regular board meetings prior to the board's consideration of any City Hall lease purchase or parking garage development agreement. And further, that we have a validation of the availability of the redevelopment funding as a resource.
Second for the
And then we'll go on to
second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, on discussion. Yep,
Can you read the part again about the redevelopment, what your,
I'm saying in the validation of the redevelopment funding is eligible as a resource. So we'll get it in writing that we can use redevelopment funding is eligible.
okay.
Okay, anybody else? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
The record reflect it was 4 yeses and 1 no by Supervisor White. And I am just going to comment again how appreciative I am that even if you disagreed, that you were polite. No, I appreciate that. I know it's hard. I know it's a long night, but good community engagement is always worthy, right? Even if you agree or disagree, I appreciate you all. So we are going to move now. Let's see. Back to the agenda. That one was a long one. Final public comment. Do I have any final? Yes. Denny. I would have known.
Thank you, Mayor. Denny French, Carson City. I was able to compose myself a bit. I avoided the screen. That helped. I do appreciate the input of this last bit of the conversation. The dissemination that Naomi brought up was acknowledged. There's been a lack of informational dissemination. We are all looking to try to look at the information and make our considerations and questions even. But that hasn't been a clear run on this. Your conversations with people, regardless if it's a foundation individual or a developer or a realtor or a public person, it's contributed to your knowledge and you have to theirs. But if you don't share that in these meetings, they don't get disseminated to the full public, and we don't have the benefit of your communications. And with this, there's a lot of questions that have been brought up today, and that is really amazing to me that that was part of this. What I think the sad part of this is that people that were trying to say, hey, listen, we're looking at the information and we're coming up with a different thing. Perhaps we're not looking at the same information. And that is a real big problem. I appreciate people's patience with me. I'm struggling to try to figure out how to handle my problem. I can imagine what you're dealing with. You've not only got your own, but you've got all of us on you about it. But I'm not on you about it because I don't think you're doing your darndest, but I think real diligence on this has not been cooperative even between yourselves. And that's important. And I know you can't talk about things that way, but if you get the same information, you can do, but then I am the beneficiary of that information, and it just hasn't been the same. And so I'm working at a whole different book. It's not just the chapter, it might not just be the page. And I'm making my decisions and considerations based on that. And I'm just not real comfortable with collaboration with this particular circumstance of public and city. We have, I feel, more work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denny. Do I have anyone else? Ms. Strasburg.
I know it's been, Betsy Strasburg for the record, I know it's been a long night. However, I would like to make a couple of points. Number one, I hope we never have staff presentation not in the packet. It really bugs me. And I know Mr. Martell knows that. Number two is the town halls are still a requirement. I know that you show a history of how you have come to this point, but several of us have not been here since I was here, but we didn't go to your 2022 meeting to really know and to suggest that we go back and listen to all the videos and come up with the same level of knowledge that each of you have at this point. It's not realistic. So please think about that. The third thing is the fact that in your motion that you ask, can the redevelopment funds be used for this project? It is late in the game to have that question asked now. I'm shocked. Because being in finance for 35 years, if I went to my boss, if I went to Mr. Martell and said, hey, I don't know if the redevelopment funds can be used and we need a new evaluation of that, I would be fired. So that is unconscionable to have that discussion at this point. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kathleen Beasley. I just want to point out that that gentleman that had the slide that talked about how much the foundation is putting towards the cost of this project and how much we all benefit from that, maybe there's something I don't understand. I don't think so, but it's possible I don't understand. You know, the very cheapest way for any city to build anything is to take out a municipal bond. That's just a fact. That's the cheapest way to do it. And so the fact that this man is going to go off and get a construction loan, oh goody, do you not understand that the lease payments you are making include all of his costs of getting that loan, all of his high interest rate? It includes all of that until you take your off-ramp. Then you know what? You go out and get bonds, and you pay all the upfront costs, and now you've got a lower interest rate, goody for us, but you've paid all of that. This is not the cheapest way to build this building. You've decided to do it, and when I make these accusations, somebody always says I'm wrong. You've decided to do it because if you were going to do a general obligation bond, you would have to take it to a vote of the people. I said this in my letter already. You would have to. And so you've picked a developer, you've picked the piece of land, you've picked out everything you wanted, and this is how you get there, is with a lease purchase. It's not a cheap way to take care of our finances.
Joy Trushinsky for the record. I think you have already made your decision. I thought the people here that came here in opposition had really good, valid points, and you ignore it. You ignore it. This should be a vote of the people. We should have meetings, and in 2022, COVID was rampant, and we didn't. I mean, I was sick in 2022 with COVID. I mean, what did I, at that time, I cared about staying alive and not your projects. But I just really am disappointed in you, except for Mo. I'm not disappointed in him. He made some very valid points, and I'm just totally, absolutely disappointed in you. You do not listen to the people. You made your decision, and you're going to stick with it no matter what. I'm not very happy with you guys.
Do I have any further final public comment? Ms. Preston.
Terry Preston for the record. Lisa, thank you so much for reminding me of something. Back years ago, actually, Bruce Robertson came into a Board of Supervisors meeting, and I was given a heads up. He was going to be doing a presentation for Ballardini's property out at the old Kmart site, but on the other. And at that time, I specifically requested, if the city was going to look at a lease or a purchase, why wouldn't they issue an RFP? And nothing has happened, but that was a request that I put at that meeting and said, if this is an actual need, an RFP should be put out to the public to give people the opportunity to present what they had to offer to the city. Thank you.
Do you have any more? Okay, then if there are no objections, everybody okay? Then we will adjourn. Thank you all for your perseverance, including the public, because everybody had to have it tonight. Thank you.